the rest, it's a lot easier.
Canceling yourself is better.
No, it is.
It is.
It is, yeah.
We told him that a long time ago, but he doesn't listen.
Sheikh doesn't like to be cancelled. Sheikh Amir?
I'm already canceled when I'm with these guys, bro. It's over.
Well, you got canceled.
That would be a separate topic, inshallah. Pro cancel versus pros and cons. So.
All right. We are live right now. And
can I drink the coffee?
of course.
As I'm like, is this irritated?
Sheikh Soussi, just you could drink whatever you want.
Okay, be relaxed. Okay.
Hello,
Do what you want.
Just
Hayakum.
mind your language. You know, we don't.
No F-bombs.
Profanity is acceptable in like when you are like trying to, you know, make an attack on the enemies of Islam. I think in that way, in that context,
the kuffar, yani.
you know.
Oh no. Are you joking?
No. If you want to swear, you can.
No, I can't.
No, okay. I just want
He's an imam, yeah.
Family. Yeah, I wanted.
No, but when you sometimes there's a way to deal with the enemy.
So wait, before this is interesting. Hold on, since you brought this up, do you ever think that because your language and people and things are changing? You know, you notice the modern imams, they start like changing the way they speak and using certain lingos. Do you ever envision that on the minbar somebody would say a word like ass or like, you know, something like, you know?
No.
Do you ever imagine some woke imam?
I can't ever imagine.
You think? I don't. I mean, sometimes you look at the community, you're like, man, I don't know, bro. You know what I mean?
I was on Karim Abu Zayd's podcast, and I used the word hell. I said, what the hell were they? I got really, I don't know why. But I just thought, I told the viewer, I said, look, hell is a bad place to be in, but it's not necessarily a bad word.
Yeah.
It's not. I think there's a way, there's a context in when certain language like that's kind of gray, you know? Yeah. Hell is like kind of a gray zone. I like to enjoy some time in the gray zone. I know there's
not physically, but just talking about it.
You know, in the entertainment world, you know?
Yeah.
As an entertainer.
No, that's
of sorts.
Yeah, I get it.
Sometimes we make that's what she said jokes and stuff like that, you know?
Yeah.
You remember how about the snowstorm that was coming? I said like, oh, sometimes they say a foot of snow is coming, but only 2 inches came, man.
Yeah. Why did people give you some lashback about that?
No one did, but I made one of those type of jokes.
Yes,
you know, about it.
Yes.
I don't know if you remember.
No, I remember.
Okay, Shabab, let's get started. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the Mamluks podcast. My name is Sim. Along with me are my co-hosts, Sheikh Amir.
Assalamu alaikum.
And Mort.
Assalamu alaikum.
We have a very special show for you guys today, and in a very cold studio, and we're in the Arctic tundra of Chicago. For those of you listening to us internationally, it's a pleasant surprise because I know many of you guys request shows that's compatible with your time zones in the UK and elsewhere around the world. So hopefully this show is a treat for you because we're freezing, so I'm bundled up in this coat and this keffiyeh.
You're looking quite fashionable.
Well, yes, I try to dress appropriately and
for the occasion.
It's kind of like a revolutionary look.
Yeah, you know, when I grew up, I was big time on Che Guevara. Before he was like, you know,
before he was the symbol of T-shirt.
Yeah, he was like the guy. It was always within the context of Islam, though. Like
Palestinian and I were both against corruption, and
I loved Che because he was ideological. He sacrificed everything for his belief, not for that ideology. That's not what
I wasn't. He was principled.
Yeah, the fact that this man wanted to, he was a doctor,
he gave up everything.
Like he was really about his beliefs. Like he didn't.
That just appealed to me when I was a kid.
Because he could have came to America and become a very wealthy doctor if he wanted.
When I was 14, 15, just obsessed with Che. So much so that I even made one of my own like faces with like that Che look. You know,
wow.
Just I drew it on Microsoft Paint. I'll show it to you sometime.
Oh wow!
But yeah.
Did you envision yourself riding on a motorcycle around and?
Yeah. That's a whole nother story. But I almost got.
Like, guys, what about me?
I'd be locked up.
My turn.
I'd be locked up in terracotta somewhere. But if I talked a little bit more, but hopefully that was all underage and bygones are bygones, right? FBI.
Yeah.
Let bygones be bygones. I didn't.
He's a secret communist. Get him.
All right. Our guest today is a agent provocateur on Facebook and other social media channels. He is an Imam out of Minneapolis, Minnesota. Please welcome to the show, Sheikh Youssef Soussi. Did I pronounce it right?
You've done it exactly correct.
Why so serious?
Well, I'm not sure. I'm sure things will change as we move forward. It's cold as it is in here, so
No, his composure changed as soon as Sim looked in the camera and said FBI. He's like,
oh no,
these guys! Damn it! I just got off the list.
Yeah.
no. Jazakumullah khair for having me. Although it is cold as you already stated, but I'm sure the content is really going to warm things up, inshallah ta'ala. So for the viewers, I think there is going to be a lot to be discussed, and I think they're in for something refreshing, inshallah ta'ala.
Yeah.
Sir.
So a little bit of background, like if listeners might not be aware, especially overseas. What's your background? Like, who are you? Were you born and raised in the States? Your background? Maybe we can help the viewers understand who you are.
A lot of people think I'm Palestinian, some people think I'm Syrian, and some people think I'm a Joe or Jeff, or Turkish, maybe because of the hat, right? Not promoting anything, but however, my father, in short, my father is Tunisian, Tunisi. Tunis is in Africa. That might come off new for some people. My mom's American, so I was born and raised. We were raised years to the 4th grade, I think, in Tunis. So we studied in Tunis, and that's why I speak the Arabic, the French, the English. The French, they were kind enough to colonize us, right? Europeans, they colonize, we terrorize, right? You guys get that?
Yes,
unfortunately. So, and then we kind of went back and forth. Thing? Well, yeah, sure. Well, it's just funny how we terrorize, they colonize, right? Unfortunately. So my father's Tunisi, my mom's American. We went to school here, went to school there, just in a nutshell. It was kind of a back and forth trade-off. And alhamdulillah, at the end of the day, I think that was healthy.
Alhamdulillah. So you must have been really happy when France lost the World Cup.
Can I be honest? I had no idea who was playing.
Yeah.
Why?
It's not that.
I liked you so much from the start.
The feeling.
You didn't like the World Cup.
Amran, the feeling is mutual. Okay. However, I had no time. But I'm not ripping on people who watched, even though we're going to get into the World Cup here. I don't think it was healthy, nor was it of wisdom for anybody to kind of, be the party pooper or rain on the parade. Look,
I respect that.
Khalas, and that's why I posted absolutely nothing negative. I posted a few jokes about the World Cup, and I just stated that, hey, whoever's going to take the World Cup is, that's the winner. And the winning team.
Whoever's going to take the World Cup is the winner. I love that.
That's like John Madden.
I was being
the obvious.
Of course, I was being a little bit sarcastic.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
And I think the winning team basically played against the losing team, right?
Yeah. So where did your Islamic academia come into all of this?
Well, when I was young and when I got done with high school, and alhamdulillah, by the grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I came from a somewhat of a religious family, and there was always the hayat there, respecting the elders, being good to the elders, respecting them, there was always that want to do good, to pray, but we didn't grow up completely religious where we're performing the 5 daily prayers and so on and so forth. And so alhamdulillah, my older brother, by the grace of Allah, was a means, my older sister, and then out of high school, you're like, well, I got to catch up to you all, right? And so there was a local sheikh locally, Sheikh Walid Al-Menessey. I'm not sure if you are familiar with him or not. Yeah. Yep. So I started off with him studying, and alhamdulillah, I already had the Arabic from my younger age. And so from there, I went off to Egypt and then came back here and finished in the university. And I'm not too fond of speaking of myself.
No, that's fine. I get it.
Egypt, Azhar Yani?
I'm sorry?
Did you go to Azhar?
Azhar Yani.
No, I didn't. You know what's funny is people dissuade me from going to Al-Azhar for whatever reasons. It's not worth mentioning here, but a lot of people were just
I know why. But I don't want to say. But anyways, but what part of Egypt did you live in?
I lived in Qahira.
But what part of Qahira?
Oh, Sheikh used to be there.
Hayy Ashar.
Are you saying Hayy Ashar? I was not too far from there.
I was like the hood.
So I stayed in Medina Nasr for a while.
Yeah, Medina Nasr.
That's okay.
Okay. Yeah. It's kind of funny is I remember I was
Limon! Remember the guy in the morning who screamed Limon every morning, bro? That guy was a riot, bro.
Oh, what's funny with me is one thing that happened to me in you go to the store there, and a lot of people, when you go and you buy something, and they'll just say, "Khali yani call us." Oh, hey, you don't have to pay, right? And so this one brother, Revert, came there for the first time, right? And he's not aware of the qeel qal wal kalam al fadi, right? They don't know none of it, right? He's a Revert. He goes to the store, and the owner says, "Khali yani call us." So the brother thinks this is a means of generosity and kindness, and so adbara yasa. He turns around and walks away and says, well, these guys are very... So the guy comes after him and says, where are you going? You have to pay for this. He says, well, didn't you just say call us? Well, no, that's just something we say here culturally. So yeah, I was just somewhat of embarrassed.
It's a cultural thing.
It was embarrassing.
How long were you there for?
I was there for 2 years, off and on.
Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
2 years off and on.
And what time period was this? 2000.
Before I got married, so about 12 years ago.
Got it.
2004, give or take.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But wallahi, it was like it was yesterday, Ajib.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
What was your favorite part about Egypt, though?
I don't know.
Nothing.
No, and
No one likes Egypt.
no, I really have a brain freeze because I don't know.
I always tell people it's one of those places when you get there, you're like, what the hell? But then when you leave it, you miss it.
Yeah.
You miss
for sure.
you miss different things about it, like
Yeah.
just the people, the food, the chaos in the street. Like
Yeah.
you miss it all.
So you like chaos?
I like chaos.
It is.
I like it.
Learn something new.
A lot of provocateurs love chaos,
What I
actually.
love is that there were traffic signals that never worked.
Yeah. Okay. Here.
Or never used.
Here's
Yeah,
what's-
never used. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Here's what's common to see though: is someone is in the wrong, going in the opposite direction, and they're flickering their lights at you. Like, get out of my way, right? Welcome to Egypt. You know, it's one of those.
And it was like, almost like I realized that these traffic signals in Egypt were just to show the world that we're modern, but it had nothing to do with use case. Like there was no pedestrian walk. Everybody knows.
Wait, is it as bad as India?
No,
India's
no.
way too crowded. That's why.
Yeah.
India is
no,
super
but the thing
crowded.
about this is like it's certain parts of the day in certain streets it can be just as bad. Meaning like
Yeah.
when you cross, I remember, and there's no crossing the street straight in Cairo. You have to go zigzag. Like you
Yeah.
have to go between the lane, walk this way, walk toward traffic limit, and zigzag
Yeah.
out. Like there's no like I remember. So one time I was walking to this place. You probably remember how to get that blanket. It's Tawheed wa Noor, okay? The place,
Right, sure.
So, man, like I had to cross the street, and I'm like on my second day in Egypt, bro. And I'm like, I'm trying to wait for this guy's like zigzagging. I'm like, oh my god, bro! I got a throw on, bro. I'm like tying it up. I'm like trying to run sideways. Like I'm running like a running back that gets through traffic like this, right? Like I'm getting ready to shoulder a car in case I get hit.
No, you got to get used to that, man. It's
Yeah,
crazy. That's
it
how
was
life
crazy.
is. But anyways, man. So
I just hope an Egyptian is not watching this, because I mean we have to be. I think we have
We
to
love
also
Egyptians,
be.
they
We
know
have to
that.
be charitable and generous, and I think we have to also recognize the good that they've done for
Of
the
course.
fact that of just allow, because we don't want really someone to. I mean, because Egyptians are very very
Proud.
nationalistic. They're
Yes.
very.
Oh my dunya.
Yeah, الدنيا عم الشيخ, you
Yeah.
know, so you have to be. So we just want to, for the record, we're very appreciative. At least I am.
course.
Now, more, I can't speak on your behalf, but I just want to get it out there for the record that I'm very, very appreciative
No, he is.
of what Egypt
Yeah.
has done.
This
for
is
me.
what I said. Like it's a place when you get to like what the hell, but then you love it. Like when
Yeah,
you, when
it
you
is,
leave,
it is,
like, you
it
have
is.
this long to come back. You miss the people. You miss the food, the environment, the crazy, the asir you drink in the street. You just miss all that stuff, right? But yeah,
Wait, what's an asir?
Yes,
It's
okay,
juice.
yes.
Oh, the
That's-
juice.
fresh juice.
What kind of juice?
Anything, sugarcane, watermelon,
Dates.
orange, anything. But you have to be careful. If you're the sugarcane, you might get meningitis.
Yeah,
You
I
gotta be
ended up
careful.
getting sick from drinking sugarcane juice in India. They warned me, but I was like,
Yeah.
Couldn't
But
anyway,
anyways, yeah.
yeah.
So you studied there off and on in Egypt, and then you So how did you end up like falling in this this imam position?
Okay, so you know what's funny is ever since I was young, I'd go to khutbat al-Jumu'ah. And I don't mean to sound pessimistic. I do not want to come off as being negative, but it was a dreadful experience. And I always thought to myself, I was always audacious. I was always bold. I was always the clown of the class. I had no problem putting myself out there. And yeah, good thing or bad thing, Allahu Alam. But I always thought to myself, I said, you know what? I'm confident that I could do a good job on that pulpit. And again, it was more of just seeing what's around me. And I said, I don't think this is helpful for the Muslim Ummah. Right. And of course, having grown up with both languages, being bilingual, you're not that you're an expert in both languages, but that you speak them freely. I think that in itself, when it comes to talab al-ilm, I think that's half the battle. And so I was grateful enough, alhamdulillah, by Allah's grace, alhamdulillah, to acknowledge that. And I think that definitely pushed
So
me
you were
forward.
toxic from the beginning.
I would say from before the beginning. Yeah.
You were toxic
Everything is
before the
toxic
toxic.
these days. Isn't it funny? You know?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good way to kind of bring up some things because, you know, we talk a lot about, you know, the way people are brought up these days and the way that men and women are brought up. And I think you've been kind of vocal about that in some regards on Facebook and other places. And I think I just before we talk about this, I just want to preface this. This is not to attack our community. It's more of giving off warning signs and saying, hey, we can recognize where this is leading and where it's heading to. And we want to warn because we can see it as an existential threat to our ways of life.
Yeah, and seeing things for what they are.
Right.
A lot of times we're in this mess and we can't see things for what they are.
And sometimes saying the truth, it has to be blunt. Yeah. The best way sometimes is to be blunt about it.
Here, if I could just maybe take that even a step further, I think the biggest disaster that crept into our masajid is hands down, bar none, is political correctness. When political correctness literally got in the front seat and started to guide our imams, the Muslim discourse, I think this is when a lot of truth claims have become lost and shoved under the rug, and it's always the maslaha. Oh, well, it's not of maslaha. It's not of maslaha. And by the way, people have to understand that I don't want to hurt your feelings, but you have to understand that sometimes the only way the truth can be conveyed is by your feelings being hurt. So hurting your feelings is not in itself an objective. It's not a ghaya. Sometimes it's going to happen. The objective is to get to the truth. But in order to get to that truth, in the process, your feelings might get hurt. It's like medicine. Medicine, it's not an end. You getting well is the end. Unfortunately, what we're doing, I think, to a lot of young Muslims is we want to give them the medicine, but we want to make them feel like the medicine has to taste like a Snicker bar or a Twix. I'm sorry, you cannot have both.
Coddling, over coddling.
The sunnah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala rejects that. You cannot have both. You cannot have the medicine taste good and for it to be effective at the same time. Right. And I think this is what's happening today.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the issue that we see as well nowadays is that people want to be told just enough and not the full truth. Meaning that tell me about the things that I'm not doing wrong, other people are, but when it comes to me, don't say it.
That's a fascinating.
Let me just feel
beautiful point that you just made, because our ego is always wanting to preserve itself. It's almost a requirement for us to keep functioning. So we want to ignore all of our mistakes. We don't want to introspect, but we still want to look at what we're doing right and just kind of build on that, but nothing about what we're doing wrong, right?
And those wrongs and imperfections could crash the house, man.
Yeah.
And to a larger point, what this makes is this also carries on to groups that we have. Like ideas that we propagate, right? If you if you're self-critical of some ideas, does that mean that you have to abandon an idea completely? Or it may not mean that, but people feel that way. If I'm beginning to think about it or think about how we're going to critically apply this or what the implications of this are, does that mean that now I have to be completely against something? For example, let's put it more practical terms, right? An idea we're talking about is like, let's just say, the ideas of some of these postmodern worldviews, right? For example, the ideas of liberalism, right, and pluralism, right? If I critique the outcome of this or what we perceive to be the outcome, does that mean we have to abandon every single thing within it and say it's all bad? It doesn't necessarily mean that. It means that there's certain things that we can see within it that have will have a dire effect on our communities, but it doesn't negate the fact that there are certain positive elements that we can benefit from, that we can extrapolate from that, which are more than likely parallel to some Islamic values, but we don't need to embrace all of it. And this is the part where Muslims get, I feel, confused, where it's all or nothing. We're on this team, either you're with it or you're against it, and if you criticize any part of it, anything, that means you're either a phobic or you're against us. You're anti-women. You're anti-men. You're this. You're that. Any type of phobia now becomes a label.
Well, to follow up also with what you said, and I've written extensively about this a while back. I don't remember. Is that it becomes we live in this dichotomy, but this is what the society has taught us time and time again: is that there's either option A or option B. Right. So, for example, when a man criticizes women, it's either you have to completely support women, and if you don't, you're either a misogynist You're a woman hater. You're intimidated by the independent woman. You're internalizing misogyny. You were dogged by a woman. In other words, legitimate criticism towards women today is like off the table, right? The same thing when you're asking for your rights. You know, if a woman is asking for her legitimate rights, it doesn't necessarily that Islam has guaranteed for her. Now, that does not necessarily render her a feminist. Right? So it goes both ways.
Exactly.
We have to be smart and look at exactly what's being applied here and what's being pushed forward before we start throwing. It's like the Zionists, right? When you criticize them, oh, you must be a Zionist.
Yeah.
Like legitimate criticism can never be a possibility.
Well, the criticism of Zionism and Zionism in itself has become a very effeminate movement. In itself, it's very emotional, and they don't think about anything. And one of the things I was thinking about, as you know, as content creators, I always try to reevaluate our message, and always trying to make sure that we're ironing out and be sincere in our reflection, and see how can I deliver my message most effectively, so that I'm not alienating or making some kind of caricature of what women are and things like that. So I've been thinking, well, you know, trying to understand the nature of women in itself. Women aren't, at least from what I understand, aren't logical creatures. We can't speak to them in the way that I think many Muslim men are in the social media space, where they're kind of taking the examples of Kevin Matthews and other kind of red pill type advocates and trying to say things in a very blunt way. Well, while some of those things might be correct, but the way you speak to women, they're very emotional creatures, and you have to speak to them with compassion. And the way the brothers are talking, even if it's making sense, and even though it may not be wrong at all, they're hurting their cause more than they're actually helping it. So I wanted your thoughts about that as well.
Okay, I think that there are two ways of viewing this. I think that we've been pampered so much. I think the women in general today, and of course our women folk are no exception, right? We're going to be affected by everything that goes around us. And so there are two ways of viewing it. One is that we've been pampered so much that when we see criticism, it immediately registers with a lot of our women folk as, oh, they must hate me. Oh, they must not like me. Oh, they are afraid of my liberation, and they're the stumbling block, and they're the ones keeping me from advancing and moving forward, and so on and so forth, right? So that's one thing, right? And of course, that falls on the shoulders of that person, is that we have to assume, we have to be mature enough to differentiate, does this person really want the best for me? What's in it for him, right? Is it legitimate criticism? Is it constructive criticism? Or is this person, the second part is, okay, this person is speaking down on me. He's calling me stupid. He's calling me an idiot. And I don't believe in that approach, and I don't think it works. I think it's ineffective.
There's also a willful misunderstanding that's happening. For example, what I just said, women aren't logical creatures. That's not what if you just took that statement on its own and say, oh, Sim says women aren't logical creatures. They do understand logic. You can speak to them with logic, but you have to wrap it with compassion, and that's what I mean. Like, it's not like they're like, oh, just bumbling buffoons.
Yeah.
No, not at all. And I think as men, we understand that too. If somebody just came up to us and a stranger walked up, Mort, you do this and this and this wrong. Like, who the hell are you, dude? Like, we just met. Like, you know, how about you introduce yourself? How about we get to know each other, and then we build off that relationship? And I think some of that trust needs to be established as well with women, where we also understand some of their complaints and their issues with Muslim men. And I think for the most part, some of the people in the religious space, some of the mashayikh who are on Facebook and stuff, such as yourself, who are trying to improve that masculinity aspect of men as well. So go ahead.
So I think it comes down to something very important too, and I think we mentioned this just prior to the show: understanding the nature of the different genders. And I know people will say there are anomalies and not everyone's the same. Yes, but there's general characteristics that we see that embody masculinity and femininity, right? These are general principles that usually apply to 99% of the population
from the beginning of time,
right? And like, you know, if I were to say, for example, traditionally women are weaker than men. It's a fact. Right? I mean, traditionally, it's true. It's not that they're, you know, what I mean is by physical strength, sure. I mean, sure, you might find a bodybuilder woman who can bench press more than me, but that's the anomaly, right? So we're generally speaking here. And I think when we don't recognize those inherent qualities of each of those genders, men and women, and we try to fight that and try to challenge that, we create these problems that don't need to exist.
Yeah.
And we create misunderstandings on purpose.
Yeah.
Right? And if you're trying to force yourself against the barrier, you're naturally, people are naturally going to push back, and you're going to naturally feel like you're being attacked. Because you have this perception that you are this egalitarian worldview, that we're equal in every sense of the word, and that is just untrue. Biologically, psychologically, physically. I mean, there's so many different things.
It's oppressive to it's oppressive to the self. And I'm going to ask you a question about this. It's oppressive to yourself to have a belief that we're equal all across the board. You're not respecting yourself, and it's disrespectful to the other person that you're addressing to make the claim. If you're a man and you're telling a woman that we're exactly the same, that's very oppressive. And it's very oppressive for a woman to tell a man, hey, we're exactly the same. And it's oppressive. It causes all types of chaos within the speaker, within the person who's giving the message, within the receiver of the message, and all of society. Because society didn't ever have to consider that in order to be a society. It's something that's just completely outlandish, right? Mm-hmm. But as we're going along this vein, one thing that may be considered very archaic, which you're most likely going to speak about, is that when men mention something about women in the workplace, or if women mention something about women in the workplace, it's like, dude, we were done talking about that in the 80s. Why are you still talking about that? That's archaic. You're backwards. You're like, what era are you from, right? But it's something that you are focusing on. It's something that you're able to shed light on an Islamic level, right? So what is that all about?
Well, here's one thing that I think, and I don't know where to start because there's so much to say, right? I think here's the thing. For our Muslim women, they really have to find it within themselves to decipher between who's really looking out for their best interest and who really doesn't care about them at the end of the day, right? Putting the slogans aside, diversity, inclusion, I mean, all that is good at the end of the day. But when in reality, a lot of these marketers, a lot of these companies, they just want your money. They don't care about your akhirah. They don't care how tight your hijab is and how tight your jeans are. The brother giving you the nasiha is genuinely caring for you, although he's telling you that which your ego does not want to hear. But nonetheless, it's true. So the brother that's giving you nasiha, there's absolutely nothing in it for him. He's worried about you, your well-being, and your akhirah. So your enemy is not the sheikh. It's not the imam. It's not the brother telling you to fear Allah. It's not the brother telling you to remove your profile picture because you're enticing men, and that comes with a lofty price in the dunya before the akhirah, right? So I think we have to differentiate between, okay, look, I know this brother told me something that I'm not ready to hear right now, but I have to find it within me to be grounded and say, I know he doesn't hate me. I know he doesn't have something against me. And that takes maturity, right? That takes discipline. That takes a lot of elements for you to come and arrive at such point in your life, right? Number two, I think we're dealing with a problem of epistemology, right? I mean, let us not, unless you're living under a rock or in a completely different world, you would acknowledge and understand that for the most part, our women folk today, they have a lot of people want their attention.
Yeah.
Companies, organizations, orgs, businesses, right? Corporations, the elite, I mean, establishments, many are looking, they're telling our women what to do. And what's happening is, because it's comforting to the nafs, it's comforting to the ego, a lot of our sisters are willing to take a lot of that in. So their epistemology is not really grounded in Islam. And so when the imam or sheikh comes and said something that contradicts her worldview, it's only natural that it's going to come off as judgmental, weird, and
religious
not accepted.
Guys, religious people,
yeah, because this epistemology is coming from one direction, and this epistemology, وَلَا يَجْتَمِعَانِ. These two they cannot they cannot harmoniously run in parallel and be exist together.
So it might be a good time to mention, speaking of epistemology, like I think even the principle of like assuming good, that like the reason why a brother might have or sister might have given you advice is because they're intending good for you. Yeah. Like not assuming that they're doing it because they want to put you down.
Yeah, but I understand that part more, but there is a difference between intending good and then being an a-hole when you're commenting and when you're trying to put a sister on the spot on social media. If you genuinely want to offer advice and want someone's best interest for them, you start with something good about them. Hey, sister, I appreciate how you do this. And then you say, well, and then start with some humility, some praise, and then move on, you know?
So my point is not about the way they give the nasiha, because that can be corrected. What husn al-dhun means that, they might have done it the bad way, or maybe the abrupt way, but what is their intention?
Yeah.
And I think that at the core of it, we're supposed to assume good about your brother and sister.
Yeah.
Even if the one who responded emotionally, even if you gave nasiha in the best way to a sister and she responded emotionally to you, you allow and say, she doesn't really mean anything bad by, she's just hurt by something, or she's just reacting, right? She doesn't mean ill, right? Or the brother doesn't mean ill in this. Maybe he said it the wrong way. And I'm sure we can, and this is the next thing I was going to mention about the nasiha, how to give nasiha, the adab of giving nasiha and the adab of receiving nasiha. These are two different things, right? How do you give it, and then how do you receive it? And these are important. And like, I think that, I don't want to take too much time on that issue, but the reality is a lot of this is based in, number one, intention. What's the intention behind people who are giving you advice? Is there a way that people can discern and find out if it's good or bad?
As you said, the default is I have to assume good. And we're not disagreeing. By the way, I believe, see, this is not necessarily about how to give advice, because that in itself is a full topic.
Yeah.
How to give advice, how to accept advice, and so on and so forth. What active ingredients have to be at play. That's a full separate discussion. But no, I agree. No, and no one is Brother Imran, no one is advocating to be a jerk. No one is advocating to be rude. No one is advocating to go out there and embarrass people. No one is advocating that. But I think one thing that people have to differentiate between is when I'm talking to someone one-on-one, it's very different than me addressing a crowd.
Exactly.
Like when Youssef Soussi is on a mimbar and he's telling people to fear Allah, and he gets passionate and he's fiery and so on and so forth, that's called passion. It's not called being judgmental. It's not called being rude, aggressive, condescending. That's different than if I'm talking with this brother about salat and we're having a one-on-one conversation. My conversation with him is going to be different.
Of course.
No, brother, I'm sure you can do better. And I know I'm sure, I think positively of you. Put your trust in Allah. Sister, you can do it. Many sisters have gone before and done it. So the conversation, the nasiha, the admonition one-on-one varies drastically from the general khitab to
Let's
the
talk
masses.
about one of your controversial posts where you started the post with women, Muslim men seek. Can you help me out with that? Muslim women seek education in the West, while Muslim men seek their wives in the East.
Yeah, as Muslim women seek their education in the West, Muslim men are seeking their wives in the East.
Now that will piss a lot of sisters off.
The passport bros,
and it did. And so.
Oh yeah.
They call them the passport bros.
Yeah, they're growing in numbers, by the way. Yeah, everybody's.
But I, for some reason,
but here, can I elaborate?
Elaborate.
Here's the thing. I understand. First off, there are many ways you can read that post.
Of course, because I read it in a very good way and a non-controversial way. But go ahead.
But see, that's the thing, though. When you think that because you are programmed to believe that your eternal enemy is the Shaykh, is the Imam, is your father, is your brother, is your husband who's telling you not to do A, B, C, X, Y, Z. In other words, anybody who comes in your way and wants to prevent you from something, although it seems good, society is teaching us that anybody who's going to stand in your way, that person is your eternal enemy. You do you, as long as it feels good to you. So what I meant by that post, first off, there's not a community that I visited in America, only that I've met ample brothers telling me exactly that. So that's what inspired me to write this post.
Yeah.
It's something that I've observed. And if sisters were to just settle down just a bit, pump their brakes and just woosah a bit, they will realize that this in itself I think it's a time for self-introspection. Well, you know what? Why are these brothers going abroad? Yeah. Some sisters immediately took it as, you want us to remain dumb? Sister, I never said that. I'm telling you that I've observed that many brothers that I've talked to here in the West, right, from varying communities across the country, are telling me exactly that. Sheikh, I went back to Somalia. Sheikh, I went to Albania. Sheikh, I went back to Thailand. A lot of people are leaving women here in the West, and they are honestly, now, but you're mad at me for that? Why are you mad at me for that? But is that not also a reality that when you look at women today, they are pursuing their careers? Youssef Soussi doesn't have a problem with a woman pursuing her career so long as she remains in her proper hijab, so long as she remains loyal to her prayer, and so long that she keeps a lot of active ingredients in mind. I have no problem. Seek an education until you're even 70. I have no problem with that. Yeah. However, the thing is this not a reality though, that a woman will seek and take she will seek her career. She will go for a bachelor's. Mm-hmm. She will have suitors who will come asking for her hand in that first 4 year, right? She will turn them away because her priorities and her career or her education takes precedence over her husband now. If that's the lifestyle you choose and you believe that's the best route to take, we're not talking about halal and haram here. Yeah. We're just talking about the obvious and what is happening.
Your happiness. Like, what do you want from life?
And that's good. You want to pursue that 4 year degree? Okay, good. You're turning that man though, and then you go for another 2 years. So let's assume you're at 24, 25, 26. That man who came and proposed to you in your early 20s, and he's in his early 20s, men are not going to sit around. Like that brother, although you're really into him, he cannot sit there and wait until he's 26, 27, or 28. Now, when you sister, you seek an education, and now you're 25, 26, and 27, the brother, the suitor, that ideal brother that you know in college, that you're into, and there's compatibility going on, that brother now, when you're 26 and 27, he's probably, most likely, already married with a kid or two.
Yeah.
And it even exacerbates the matter as age increases. So when this woman is in her 30s, it becomes even more difficult, and I want to say something here because I think it's really important. We're starting to see, and by the way, all of you, I'm sure we're starting to see more and more women come out expressing their distaste and dissatisfaction with the way they've gone about their lives. She's in her 30s, and I saw a tweet just 2 days ago, and I'm sure many of you have probably come across it. She's basically saying that when I was in my early 20s, many suitors came my way, and I rejected them because I wanted to continue my education. Now she's in her 30s, and men, when they're in their 30s, they're looking to marry a woman in her early 20s.
Yeah.
That's only natural, right? So Youssef Soussi, this post should not be problematic to anyone at all, right?
I think
it's a reality.
Yeah, I think there's two things here. Number to mention. So I was thinking about this while you were talking, and I was thinking there's two things here. Going back to the conversation about biology and understanding the psyche,
the ticking clock. The clock is ticking.
But also understanding if you want to have a successful relationship with the other, whether it be man or woman, you have to have some degree of understanding of their psychology and what's important to them.
Without a doubt.
And we try to understand what's important to women: security, comfort, jobs. Men spend their life trying to level up, getting a degree, being masculine, raising a family, showing responsibility to get married. Generally, what they want in response, in reciprocation, is that, hey, we have a mother, we have in our home, we have a good wife, we have generally food and clean in the house, things like that we expect, traditionally speaking.
Sure.
And the issue here that I wanted to mention about this was this, that we know that when you get married, it's qadr Allah, we know this, but there are certain realities. When a woman spends more time in education and career, she is leveling herself up. But what that means is that her standard also becomes higher. Meaning what? That women generally tend to want to marry up.
And that's normal. And they're not to be blamed. They're not to be blamed for that.
Not at all.
Right.
That's why I don't even condemn women that feel they want you want $100,000 mahar. If you believe you believe that queen, then get that. If it's what you feel, that's your right.
Sure.
Right. So I have no problem with that. But understand that most brothers don't have fathers that are going to pamper them and tell them to go to get a PhD in college.
Right.
And you're not. So a master's, a six-figure income, a certain amount of X, whatever values that you see important because you've reached those in a man, that pool becomes smaller and smaller. And more than likely, the men that you are going to find that have those same qualities are more than likely already going to be married. Yeah. Right? Or they're gonna come with their baggage.
And they're not waiting. They're not waiting.
Right. And so that's just basic human psychology. It's not about qadar. I mean, this is just basic psychology that we look at, and this comes down to understanding the differences in biology between men and women, right? Yep. And so the second point I also want to bring up is in regards to this whole idea of women. I just want to make this point too. I think to a certain degree, Muslim fathers have failed at raising daughters with the intention that your priority as you get older is to find a suitable husband, and here's the issue. They are babying them, which they should. They're daughters, but not preparing them. And they're not, the women I'm finding are having a difficult transition because they're babied. A lot of times they're able to get supported by their fathers and go to school and live at home and then have this wonderful life that parents give their children. But the transition of being a daughter to a wife there's nothing there for them. They think that the husband is now to assume the role of the father. And say, I just going to do, a lot of women get married for freedom. I get to be out, I get to do this now. No one's going to tell me what to do. I'm married. I'm a married woman. But they don't realize that the responsibility is shifting to somebody else who the relationship dynamics are different. Now it's a leader versus just someone who's going to pamper you. A father knows that he can pamper his daughter for as much as he can because eventually he's going to give the best life, and her responsibilities will be different later on. She becomes a woman, has a child. Her husband and her will have that responsibility. If you notice, fathers treat their wives different than their daughters, right? Obviously, it happens, but I feel like we've failed in this regard, and women do not realize the importance of getting married and the importance. It's always about get a career, and it happens also with the males real quickly. Is that focus on the career. Oh, you want to don't get married now. You're too young. Get a degree, get stable. By the time you're 25, 26 years old, next thing you know, you're going to find a partner. It doesn't happen right away. It takes a couple of years. You're in your 30s, and now you've been living single your whole life. You've been avoiding all the haram or maybe following the temptation in some way, and now you're expected just to figure that out right away. And now, oh, by the way, now you got to have children. Now, after a whole time, your focus has been careers and schooling and education. Quickly have a child now because you're running out of time.
Well, here's the problem too. Sheikh, on our drive over here, I was talking to you about my divorce and how it was difficult for me to find a spouse after I talked to a lot of sisters during that period, and many of the sisters unfortunately said that many of the Muslim brothers they wanted to talk to for marriage were asking them, how come you're not working? How come you're not? I need a dual income household. How much of the share are you going to take up on the monthly expenses? Shameful. And this is a real problem within Muslim brothers, where we have internalized these roles that the West has kind of set up for women, and we've realized like, oh well, you know what? Our path to happiness is a dual income family, where we get
standards up a little bit.
We get to have that big home, that big mansion. We have multiple vacations throughout the year, and then they complain about the mess that comes out with that baggage. So go ahead and talk about a little bit about that as well.
Wallahi, akhi, I mean, there's so much to put on the table. For beginners, I will say that it is the man's duty and responsibility for him to provide financially for his wife and for his kids, right? And I think, again, this goes back to the whole this idea of responsibility, right? And marrying my daughter one day, I have to make sure that he is ready to assume responsibility. No, she's not. If she can work or not, that's completely irrelevant. Are you ready to assume a household or not? Are you a grown man? Are you mature enough to assume this responsibility? Again, whether she's going to be working or not, that's secondary and it's irrelevant, right? And I think we have to do a better job at teaching our men from a young age that that is your job. This is what Allah is asking of you. This is what Allah is requiring of you to do. And I'm not going to lie. I've heard this before. And I believe this takes away from your rujula. Because I've heard women contacted me on Messenger telling me, Sheikh, it's not that we want to work. My husband makes me work. My husband wants me to work. And I'm not going to lie. Your wife is not going to look at you with ayn al-ijlal wal-ikbar when you're making her work to fit the bill, right? There's something about that.
Why does she need you?
Exactly.
And I'm not taking away from the responsibility of some sisters who realize that they need all these different things. They want vacations. They want these things. And the brother says, hey, look, we have a limited amount of money. You want to do these extra things? You work whatever capacity you want, so that you could meet that kind of lifestyle. And that's where the predicament's happening, where brothers are saying, well, if you want this, go ahead and work, and then we're going to have to deal with.
See, I think that's the mistake.
Okay, go ahead.
Because I feel like that. Listen, as a leader, you say, listen, we're going to make this work, right? Because if you give the option and say, well, he's like, well, then he basically what they're going to say is, oh, he wants me to work because he can't give me these things, so he's not really good enough for me, so I have to go and do this myself. This is the way they're going to take it. oh, he's not, I mean, I hate to take it this way, he's not man enough to give me what I need. So I'm going to go out and do this. And if you allow that thought to flourish and grow in their mind, I think it's like this, bro. I'll tell you, it's like this. Imagine running a company, right? And you say, this is the department budget for the year. You want more, go out and get money from somewhere else. You would never say that. Because it violates the company ethics, meaning that, hey, you're bound, we're in this together, this is what we have to work with. Perhaps we can find other ways to level up. I'm not saying a woman can't earn, but I'm saying at what expense does that come? When you say, listen, go out and work a full-time job or and be out of the family, you have to recognize that what you're now asking for is undoubtedly a something to suffer at the family level. There's no doubt about this. Mm-hmm. When a woman goes out to work, there's ultimately
a trade-off that happens.
It's going to happen. It's a trade-off. It is a trade-off. Even a man going to work is a trade-off, but we know it's a responsibility.
But that's the asl. That's the asl.
Yeah,
the man working is the asl.
Exactly.
That's the default position. I think you're dragging us into another field here, or area or sphere, if you will, and that is this idea of expectations.
Yeah.
I think the expectations have blown through the roof. And a lot of men are turned off. And this is another point that I forgot to mention earlier. This is why I was talking to the Uber driver last night, and he told me this, wallahi, this is for the sisters. We love you. This is why we're telling you this, right? There's nothing in it for me, right? He was telling me this exact thing. He said, Sheikh, wallahi, he said, Sheikh, I tried getting married to several women here in America, and they all had these crazy expectations. I have to have A, B, C. We're not talking about a roof over your head and just living a reasonable life. No. They're talking about, I have to have this, our vacation at least twice a year, and I have to have this kind of, I mean, it wasn't live ala al-baraka and live according to your means and so on and so forth, right? So what does this man do? He goes to the East. So don't be mad at me. I'm telling you what I'm getting from, and of course, which is not to go to the other extreme. We want yes, a woman should have expectations, but dear sister, are your expectations within reason, or are you exaggerating and you've been watching too many dramas and you're basing your whole life and reality off of these dramas?
I think it's not even drama. I think it's exactly what you mentioned. It's something that was fed to us as a society. And I'll give you an example. Look, the first thing that you mentioned is where the brother is saying that, look, she has this demand, right? Number one, yeah, it has to do with expectations also. But if a man is seeking something else, it's automatically that he doesn't have a sense of security. He's not secure about himself. Why is he not wanting me to work when I went through all this education and all? Look, education is beautiful. Working can be very, very good. Look, when my missus and my daughter have to now go to like a doctor, I try to seek out a Muslim female doctor.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
Those things are very much needed, of course. And there's many things that are a requirement for a Muslim society to be a vibrant, flourishing Muslim society. I get that. But now comes the point of, number one, clearing this misconception that men are insecure about themselves because they don't really want that, they don't need that. And you mentioned all the like vacations and all that. Like the second thing is like, if you're not able to, and if you don't even want to, let's say, you should be upfront. Like, yeah, in my marriage, I don't want to go on lots of vacations. You have to be very, very clear about that. And I'm not going to be able to, from the line of work that I'm in, I'm not going to be able to take lots of vacations, maybe once every few years. And that's just what I'm offering. If you can't, that's totally cool. The next is a sister that's, and I say this very, very respectfully to our sisters. If you have all of these boxes that need to be checked off, number one, the type of man that you're looking for is probably a whole different realm of men that has many, many options of women. Why should he be picking you in the first place, right? Because if a man, let's say, is making like $600,000 a year, $800,000 a year, which is kind of rare, right? What is that stat? I think like 10% of men in the United States make $100,000 a year.
Over $100,000 in the top 15%. If you make anything over $150,000 to $200,000, you're something in like a 5% range or 7% range.
Yeah, no. I think $250,000 is like 1% of men in the United States.
I think like, but I think nonetheless, you're in the top 5%. Okay. Which is, and by the way, of that 5%, how many of Muslim? I mean, how many are Muslim?
Yeah.
How many are unmarried?
Yeah.
And how many of them are straight?
Yeah.
Right.
No, because the reason I'm asking is
you took it from
there was a poll that was done. A majority of those type of men doesn't actually want a working woman. He doesn't want a woman that's going to be contributing to the house. He wants a woman that's going to be giving him children to carry his legacy on, and he wants to marry a wife that's living only exclusively for him. If you want that lifestyle. Yeah, he'll give you everything you need. You don't have to be working, number one. He's not going to expect you to. He doesn't want you to be masculine. But he's going to be expecting you to be living solely for him. And if you don't, that's fine. He's going to find somebody else. Because somebody will.
Well, I feel like there are about 20 things that I want to say right now.
Yeah, go ahead.
But I don't know what to start with. You say something.
The security thing. The security.
No.
False. The insecure men.
Okay. Well, I don't know where to start because there's so many thoughts flowing right now, but I don't know what to chronological.
I mean, each of these things can be an episode in itself. So, just
see, okay, when you talk about that, let's be honest. There's a leader in the house.
Yes.
Okay. In short, if you as a woman, you're going to get a degree 2 or 3 and you're a career woman, and you feel now that makes you the qawama of the house, you're going to have a hard time in your marriage. Like Allah gave, that's a default position that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave to the man, is for him to be the qawwam and the leader of the house. Irrespective of where you graduated from, irrespective of the number of degrees you have, and irrespective of your career, all of that is irrelevant when it comes to who's the leader of the house and who's not. So if these degrees and if this career and if this lucrative income is going to make it very difficult for you to be a loving, submissive, charitable, heart-warm wife, I think you're going to have, although you have all these financial
why can't a woman
needs,
have all those and still be heartwarming and submissive and all that?
Why what? I'm sorry?
Why can't, if she has all those, good characteristics and qualities, why can't she be loving and submissive and stuff?
She can. She can. I think this draws us to another question. Can we be very frank? Okay.
Yeah.
Can we be frank and candid and just straightforward?
Hey, bro, wherever you want.
Have careers truly made mothers better mothers. Have careers made daughters better daughters. And you guys don't even have to offer an answer, right? Have the careers, the money, I can do it on my own. Has this really produced better mothers? Has it really produced better sisters? In other words, what I mean better in the Islamic sense, meaning are they, is the hijab better as they grow with their education? Is their hijab better? Are they more loving? Are they more caring? Or does it usually go the opposite direction?
Well, there's even before that, you take some sisters who are working and career oriented. If you take them out of that role, it doesn't necessarily equate that their children will become more religious at the end of the day. Some people, men and women, have a lot of internal work that needs to be done. It's not like if I quit my job and my kids will their Islam and their attachment to there could be, if a woman is more secular or a man is more secular, their kids will go into that path and that direction. Sure. They'll take up the arts, let's just say painting or music or whatever, and they'll direct their resources towards that, because that's what happens in Western families that have women who are stay-at-home moms. Their kids go into that direction. The center of the Muslim woman, if her center and is aligned with Islam and the excellence of her children's attachment with Islam, I think that in itself will also
that makes a huge difference. Huge difference. Yeah.
I think one of the main things that I was looking for, at least in a woman when I was looking for marriage, was that it wasn't just that she fears Allah and stuff, but there's an attachment because of the work that we do here. It takes a lot of time here with the podcast and a lot of the dawah work that we do, that her attachment is to the concern of the Muslim Ummah, that there's an alignment that's happening with not just, this with Islam, but with also the advance. But that was my Sims requirement. I'm not saying every Muslim has to have this, but you when you're vetting out some of these sisters, you have to not just look at is she wearing hijab, but what level is her concern with the advancement of her children and their attachment towards Islam, so that not just her children, but her grandchildren and her great-grandchildren, they all pursue this line of excellence with Islam to align their mission with Islam,
You just made me think of something, and I hope this is still on topic. Let us not forget, there are amazing brothers out there who the last thing they're looking for
It's marriage.
no, the last thing they're looking for is your degree.
Oh,
Or even if you
yeah.
have a college degree. I know a brother from whatever community, it's irrelevant. I don't want to mention it now, just min bab al-hasasiya. He was looking for a woman to marry. It took him about 3 or 4 years. Okay. Every home he would go to, the woman wanted to work. She wanted to be outside. And can we again be brutally honest? Not that anybody should expect anything different, but it's understandable why a lot of men don't want their women working out there.
Of course.
Because we men know how we are. We men know how we are and how men can be.
Yeah.
Okay. I just want one important thing. But it wasn't a turn on for him how much she was making or where she graduated from. The fact that she wanted to pursue a career, that was a turn off for him. Why? Let us not forget there is a big segment in our society, right, that is still looking for that traditional role. They want the woman to stay at home. Yeah. And I think it's very difficult to find a sister, right, who's going to go for 4 or 5, 6 years seeking higher education, but who's willing to really use that degree as a safety net in case of, the ravages of time, and be okay with saying, hey, I got a degree, but I really want to be a mother. I'm just going to use this for sense of security. So I think we have to shift the tables, because society is teaching a lot of women today, and of course our women are included in that your degree is going to put you at such a high pedestal that all of these men are going to be knocking at your door. Yeah. I don't mean to be the bearer of bad news, but wallahi, thumma wallahi,
majority
thumma
of men
wallah,
don't care about that.
That is not the case.
The men that do care about it are not the men that you want.
That's a great point.
I think there's also something. It's so much to say about it.
Oh yes.
And I think it's just I'm trying to organize the right thoughts and try to say it in a way that women will also be able to understand this. When a woman goes out and works and mingles in the public too freely, that is a negative reflection on my honor and me as a man. If my woman has to go out and work, doesn't matter if you want to or you don't need to. The perception that other men will have of me and my community and the kind of family that I'm raising, it shows, for me, it comes off, and of course, this might be a stroke of the ego, whatever it may be, but it's related to the ghira and the protection that we have over the women. I don't want anyone to assume that I am not able to provide for my family and that my wife has to go out and work and provide for me. Rather, it's not about, and if you really and truly want to work, I truly believe this. The sunnah of the Rasulullah is clear that the best place for a woman is in her home. If you want to do it, alhamdulillah, today we have the internet, we have businesses, we have consultancies. There's so many things you can do from the comfort of your own home. Even a teacher can teach from her home today.
Yeah.
If you truly, and you have this burning desire to make your degree and put it to work, you can find ways to do it from your home.
Yeah.
But it's a matter of, do you truly want to do that? Are you really interested in building a marriage, or are you interested in just seeking freedom? Yeah. What are you looking for? Yeah. If you want marriage, then understand that it's a partnership and that men who will, by default, there's no question, have the authority. This is not even a question it should be. Just as your father, and this is, I come back to this before and I say, Muslim people, especially Muslim women, have an issue with authority, and they shouldn't have an issue with authority, because everybody has an authority. This idea of not having an authority does not come from Islam.
No, without a doubt. I don't think anybody could say otherwise. There is there is indeed a big, huge problem with authority. And can I look? This is not. I know a lot of people are not.
Be brutally honest, bro. Be brutally honest.
No, I am. I think what exacerbates that and what doesn't help is the fact that a woman knows, the career woman knows, she can leave at any minute she wants.
Yeah. It's that sense of freedom. Yes, sir.
We're not, listen, and I think this is I'm responsible and very cautious as to what I say. For some women, the biggest downfall for some women, the biggest danger for some women is her own independence.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, but some sisters will argue with you, Sheikh, that why shouldn't we have that ability? Because of the nature or the level of degeneracy that's happened within Muslim women. Some of the examples that I cited earlier, well, how come you don't fulfill your end of the bargain and you pay half the expenses, and some of these weak masculine qualities that are present in many Muslim men, and that leads them, well, why shouldn't I have that? Because as a father, I'm looking at my daughters and I'm like, well, if this is what they're going to be contending with out there, maybe they should be, pursue their education and protect themselves in the event that some kind of their marriage degenerates in that manner, where they need to protect themselves with careers and so that they.
See, Akhi Imran, let's be realistic. Because when I hear Muslim women generally talk about education, they really bring me back centuries ago. The world that we're living in today has literally flipped upside down. Men are no longer men, women are no longer women. You could no longer tell the difference between the two. So when people talk about scientists in the past, we're not talking about the degenerate environment that's found on college campuses today. So when a woman seeks her education, right? I mean, here, let me give this scenario, right? 4 hours for her 4 years doing her bachelor's, okay? 2 years doing her master's, okay? And then another 4 years, going back to authority here, and then another 4 years pursuing her PhD, okay? During this 10-year period, she goes freely when she wants. She comes back when she wants. She befriends whomever she wants. Are you honestly telling me, billahi alayk, are you honestly telling me that this woman, it's going to be easy for, I'm not saying it's impossible. We're talking about probabilities here. Are you honestly telling me it is going to be easy for that woman now to assume the role of a righteous wife, acknowledging that there is a man in the house and that man is her husband and he's the authority of the household? Is he going to be able to tell her, I don't want this person in my house. I don't want you befriending that. Why are you leaving now? Please be home before Maghrib. Are you honestly telling me that that's going to sit well with her and she's going to welcome that? And what I'm saying is going to be very, very difficult. Sure. And this is why I'm not saying that piety and education are mutually exclusive. But we find, again, and this goes back to raising children, is that there's so much hyper focus on the education that we're not focusing on the taqwa. We're not focusing. I mean, you go get educated, but how much of your femininity is completely lost? Yeah. But you think it's being strong and courageous. Well, men are not looking for strong women. Yeah. We already have strong men out there in society. Yeah. I don't want to come home and deal with another strong individual. I had my fair share outside.
Nature. Right? The nature of what we're looking. If you like, for example, we talked about this earlier. We said, listen, I mean, many times before we said this. Generally, when men are looking to get married, the last thing they're looking at is your degree and how much money you make. Yeah. Generally speaking, right? If they might say there might be some guys that want you to work, but they're not worried about how much money you're making. They're worried about, you can help out, whatever. But women usually put this forward because that's what they're looking for in men.
Yeah, which is fine. They should.
Look, they're showing this is what I have, what do you have, because this is what they feel is attractive to other people. And this is not what men generally look for. What they're looking for is, what is going to inspire me to continue and go out and work hard, and what's going to make, because let's just be quite honest here, okay? Brutally? If it wasn't for Islam, right, we would never get married to women. Why would we need to get married? We would have our way with women.
Sure. Oh, I see.
Go around, whatever it may be. It doesn't, no accountability at all. Marriage is a protection for you, your sisters. Yeah. It's not for us. I mean, alhamdulillah, we benefit from it, no doubt. Allah gave it wisdom. I mean, the life of living that way, the degenerate lifestyle, but we would benefit in the dunya much more by not getting married. We'd be wealthier. We'd have an abundance of women, unlimited women we can be with, children anywhere, with no accountability. This is something that would be a tool of desires, right? Shahawat. But so marriage was institutionalized to protect the rights of women. And now you want to sacrifice that right. You want to try to compete with men in a world. I'm telling you, I work in the corporate world. It is a very difficult world even for men to compete in. And men have the ability to compartmentalize that, generally speaking, and be able to deal and shoulder that. True men, I'm not talking about the weak men. True men are able to shoulder those burdens of work and society and come home and still be a man and take care of his family. Right? These kinds of stresses affect women differently. Mm-hmm. The ability to turn off masculinity and femininity, a man doesn't have to turn off his femininity to go to work or turn it on to come home. This is just a natural way of a man.
That's the default.
A woman has to play with this and wrestle with the internal. Do I want to be a mother? Do I want to make my husband happy? Do I want to make my boss happy? What's my reputation among other female peers? All these different psychological aspects that affect the day-to-day of a career woman. I'm not saying it cannot be done, but it is very difficult to balance.
Yeah.
And I just want to point this one last thing. It's also going back to the intention and whose interest. Who benefits the most when you have a number of women going out and working?
Barakallahu fik.
And doing
Barakallahu fik. Yeah.
Who is benefiting?
Yeah.
Two main people. The greedy capitalist at the top, who's going to, number one, who wants you to work because you're just an extra tax income for them, and another consumer, right, outside. And number two, the degenerate man who doesn't want to take responsibility, who wants you to go out and live your life and have freedom and sexual exploitation and independence, so he can take advantage. Because those men, they don't want you, they don't want responsibilities. They don't want accountability. They want you to be equal with them so they can rub their hands and wash their hands clean of any accountability. So who's benefiting from this? The biggest sham that's been happening is you're made to think that you're independent and liberated, but really the degenerate liberal man is the one that's benefiting the most from this situation. How does that work?
I have a problem. I have a problem just with we have to we men and women have always looked at things different. Right? And of course, this is just the rahmah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But I think what some women view as an asset, we men view as a liability. Okay? So you have some women, they parade that, right? It's on their Facebook platforms. It's the very first thing you see next to their profile picture, right? No, yes, I'm lowering my gaze. I know, I understand. Jazakumullah khair. Thank you for not leaving the comments. Astaghfirullah, Sheikh, lower your gaze, right? What happens is when a woman says, I'm independent, for us men, that's not cute. It's not attractive, right? Because it's as if you're telling me, hey, I really don't need you, but if you want to come on board, then sure, come along. We men want to feel needed. Now, I know a woman is going to interject immediately and say, but we women want to feel needed as well. Sure, but we're not men. We are not the ones saying we're independent. We can do it on our own. We don't need you. We're not saying it. It's you women who are saying it. So that's why we're just using that as a rebuttal. When you say I'm independent, you leave no room for vulnerability. We men, it's part of our nature, women and men, we want to feel appreciated. Women want to feel appreciated. And if they're doing their part diligently, they should feel appreciated. We men want to feel appreciated as well. But when you come up with this, I'm independent, I can do it on my own, you're going to I'm telling you, sister, wallahi, brotherly advice, nasihatu mushfiq, you're going to have a hard time finding a husband and continuing that marriage. Number two, what you talked about, I wrote a post, I think it was about 3-4 months ago. Wallahi, I don't know why. I never thought that I would study Sharia to be talking about this. I never thought I'd be doing it. Anyways, when you talked about earlier, that is extremely crucial for a career Muslim woman to understand. And that is that her shifting between the career woman at work, where your boss, your job, or your employer, they're expecting of you to be strong, determined, and firm. Guess what? If you're not willing to shut that off when you set foot in your home, you are going to undoubtedly, it's just a matter of time, inevitably, you're going to ruin your marriage if you cannot shut it off. Because you come home and you're probably treating your husband the same way you were treating some of your employees at work. And guess what? A natural man, a man is not going to put up with that. Sure, you have a bad day here. We all have these bad days. But when it becomes a trend and you start talking to him as though he's just one of your employees, you're going to risk either losing him or your job. Because now when you go back to work and you're too feminine, well, now you have to adjust. And as Brother Mort said earlier, it is very, very tricky to play that balance. I'm going to be this, strong, firm, determined woman at work, but then I'm going to let my guards completely down when I arrive at home. So to play around with that switch, it is awfully, awfully tricky.
It's tricky for everybody.
It's very tricky. But the difference with the man, it's our default.
Yeah.
It's our default, so we don't have to play the role.
Yeah, and it's our obligation. We have to. And, but one thing I wanted to ask you, all this, look, we're talking, a lot of the stuff just comes back to marriage. So,
can I say something? I think the reason why this takes up the bulk of my content, and a lot of people reached out to me and they said,
I want to know this.
The reason why I lose sleep over this, because I find a lot of people, mashallah, they're very educated, they're making a lot of money, but as a couple, they are miserables. They are miserable because the woman is playing the role of the man and the man is playing the role of the woman, right? And that's the problem with a lot of these, I don't want to call them beta males, but men who just need guidance. they really need guidance, right? You'll find that they have certain urges when they, and this is becoming very, very frequent, by the way, is that they'll have certain urges, but they're constantly being told that they're a pervert and what they feel is extremely toxic and they have to get rid of it, right? And the problem is they try to suppress it, but as they suppress it, it keeps resurfacing.
Yeah.
But everybody around these young men is telling them constantly that what you feeling is because you're toxic, you're a pervert, and you have to work on yourself. And the young man, unfortunately, no one's talking to him, by the way, because mainstream Muslim dawah is not talking to the young Muslim man. Our young men are being badgered.
Yeah.
They're being badgered. They're being told and reminded time and time again
ashamed.
that you should be ashamed of that, and you're toxic, and you should get your mind out of the gutter, not knowing. I got news for everybody. This is how Allah created men.
Yeah.
So going back to the man who gets married, and this is all he's been exposed to on the manabir, right? And at these national conventions, I have a problem with a lot of these national conventions. And if you would like, we can have a separate episode on that.
No, it reminds me of. Yeah.
But the man, I just want to end with this, and I'll forgive me.
No, you don't have to end. I want you to keep going.
He tries his best to suppress it. It keeps resurfacing. But he doesn't know how to tell his wife this because his wife is looking at him thinking that her expectations, his expectations are both the same, not realizing that in marriage, men are going to want something very different than what women want from men. And this is something very basic that a lot of PhD holders simply do not understand. Some of the men believe that the more I tell her yes, the more she's going to look at me with this, eye of ikbar and ijlal. I'm sorry. No, the Prophet ﷺ said yes a lot. He would hardly say no, but he was not a yes man. ﷺ. Yeah, so please.
I think what the message that we can kind of get to the young brothers out there is that embrace your toxicity. Embrace. No, I mean, what I'm saying is because what they're called and
what they're referring to as toxic.
Somebody is going to clip this and be like, oh my God, he wants to be toxic. By all means.
It wasn't me. Where's the camera?
But what I'm saying, no, I'll say it. I say this all the time.
No, but we know. Yeah.
Explain what you mean.
He means, your natural.
What they call toxic.
Right. Is natural.
Is natural to you.
Yeah.
Right? The fact that you have desires and want to have sex with a woman who is feminine is normal.
Yeah.
The fact that you want to lead your household is normal. The fact that you want to have the final say is normal. The fact that you believe that you're stronger than women is normal.
Yeah.
The fact that you're competitive is normal.
Right.
The fact that you have aggression is normal. Right? These are all qualities of men that Allah gave to us that are used for qawama.
Yeah.
I want to say one thing real quick because I operate in that same way, Morton. Those are wonderful attributes that you talk about. And there's one thing I want Muslim men to at least understand. At least there's a lot of masculinity talk and stuff, but that doesn't take away from your other responsibilities that Islam and the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam taught us. In terms of our compassion and the way we deal with our women. Yes, you have the final say, but there's a way to talk about that, and how to reach an agreement, have consensus, and how to woo a woman to bed and things like that. You don't, just flip over, I want my way.
So
these are things that we have to understand. The way I frame my marriage with my wife is that I want. You remember that scene in Sayyidina Yusuf's story where the women are cutting themselves when they see.
Right.
Not that I'm at that level, but or even in the looks department. I'm not talking about the looks department. But I want, if a woman was to ask my wife how I treated her and how my treatment and my care in the household and how I take care, I want them to feel like that.
Yeah,
like that. Like
that's beautiful.
That they wish that their husband had that, because I want my wife to know that I don't just talk about these aspects of masculinity, but there's also a balance with compassion and love and responsibility and taking care of not just my own children but my stepchild, her child. So these are the. You don't just focus on one thing in some. Yeah, each person is different. Some people are lacking in some areas, and some people aren't. But each person has to do that internal self-reflection. Some sisters have to really be careful who they're choosing as their spouse. If you're going to be a stay-at-home mom, you have to make sure that this guy is your ride and die. He's not going to be, ditching you once you're, you hit 40 or whatever. So these are.
But I think you have to also look. This is about. I think what you're talking about though is about love and respect, right? And that requires work. If you want your husband to be a ride and die with you, right, or your wife, you have to put the work in to say, listen, because love is a muscle. The more you put in, the more you're going to get out of it. The less you put in, it's going to die out. It's a flame. You have to keep blowing the fire, making and then what I'm saying is that if you want a man or a woman to stay around do what you have to do out of, meaning that within reason.
Yeah, the world doesn't revolve around rights. See, this is the problem too, is that, here, let's, did I cut you off?
No.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Jazakallah khair.
I'm always talking anyways. So
no, okay, all right, okay. So here's the thing, right? Our women, I believe, the reason why we're dealing with the conundrum that we have presently today is because our women for the past decade or two have always been taught and told and reminded of their rights. This is utter destruction. When all you remind someone of is their right, the life is about rights and duties. You're going to immerse yourself so much in rights. And this is why I have a problem with a lot of the people on the manabir. I have a problem with these conventions. I have the problem with mainstream discourse. It seems as though the whole world is already telling women what their rights are. Instead of us combating that, rebuttaling it, tweaking it a bit, your next khateeb on the minbar comes up and gives us another khutbah about how Islam guarantees women their rights. Hello? Does anybody talk to our women about their duties, their responsibilities? That your husband, your sister is he can be your way to hell, but he can also be your way to paradise. Obedience of your husband is an Islamic concept. You have to understand that it has to be in their radar, in their peripheral. This is not me saying it. This is Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So I think this is why you get what we get today. And I think this is why some of our sisters, honestly, are living in la la land. They really are living in a bubble. They think there's something innately special about them. And this is why you get all these expectations. See, the thing, another point that I want to get back to, you were mentioned earlier, see, there's a balance. We don't want men to be tyrants at home. I don't want my daughter to be married to a tyrant someday. I want a man who's going to be appreciative, who's going to be loving, who's going to be firm, who knows when to be firm, who knows when to turn a blind eye, who knows when to just give a stern look, who knows when. There's a place and time for everything, right? So we don't want men who are tyrants, but we also don't want men who are complete yes men and doormats. Right? I just want to give you a story quickly. A wife told her husband recently, she noticed that a lot of women around her started, taking off their hijab or wearing, kind of loosening the hijab and tweaking it a bit, not in the better, right? She looked at her husband one day and she said, you know what? I just really want to immensely thank you from the bottom of my heart. And the husband says, why? She said, I noticed a lot of women in my circles, right, close to me, their hijab changed over the years. Had it not been for you, of course, after Allah, I probably would have followed suit. I find that to be powerful, right?
Alhamdulillah.
Yeah.
Allahumma barik.
And this is what Quran mentioned, the protection of one another.
Yeah.
Right? Like a man put the clothing. What is clothing? Libas is it's a guard. It's a guard. It covers you.
Yeah.
Your wife and your husband, they cover each other.
Yeah.
They encourage you to good and they protect you from the evil.
Yeah.
Right? And imagine for men, this is what women don't realize also, that for men, one of the biggest evils that we can encounter is zina, is women. And we're naturally, so when we are you already have us by that stranglehold, meaning that it doesn't take much to make a man happy.
We're very, in comparison to women, we are very, very basic and simple.
We're very straightforward. Generally speaking, and we
The
require
2 or 3
less.
things, that's actually right.
Yeah,
it's 2 or 3. I don't know if I can be explicit.
And loyalty.
Okay,
these are the main things that generally most men will feel comfortable with.
He took it away from me.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is that, but
this is intuitive, right? I mean, like men see, what's funny is though, here's the thing. I hope I'm not interrupting you again. Men back home who probably can't read or write, and women back home who probably can't read or write, who are living in a small village. Do you know all of this? They would probably think that we're wasting our time.
They think we're aliens.
No. Hear me out. All this is so sensical to them. They're like, of course, yeah, we know this.
That's normal.
You know why?
How
Because
else would it be?
because they're on the fitrah.
Yeah.
And this is why I urge a lot of young Muslims and Muslimas. The only way you're really going to make strides in your life and become better is by having some humility. Stop thinking like you guys have it all figured out. You're in your mid-teens, early adult, in your adult years, you're in your early 20s. What you don't know about life is far more than what you do know about life.
You don't know what you don't know.
I'm telling you.
We don't have to reinvent the wheel. Meaning that we've lived this way as a society for thousands of years.
Yeah.
And we've come this far. Yeah. If this was so archaic and so bad and so evil and so yada, yada, yada,
right.
We've made all this progress as human beings. Forget about just religion itself. As human beings, we made all this progress because an evil system, on something that was degenerative, doesn't make any sense. The point, the other thing I wanted to mention as well too is, since we were talking about this earlier, is rights. Just because you have a right to something doesn't always mean you should exercise that right. That applies for man and woman. For example, I can demand sex to my, let's say I need it, right? It's my right to have it. But the way that I do that, if you think I'm not really moved or whatever, right? I can demand it and say, yeah, it's my right, right? But is that conducive for your marriage, for you, meaning in that moment, are you doing this for the benefit of your marriage in the long term? Are you, like, for example, this woman might follow this opinion that, the husband has to cook and provide this and that. Let's say you believe that. Is that conducive for your marriage though? Yeah. Are you going to make your husband happy? Yeah. Are you going to make your wife happy by doing this? Yeah. Right? These are things. So not every single right, rights are set there to be the hudud. To be the boundary and say, this is the furthest you can go, right? But you should stop before that line and say, hey, what can I do to make this better?
Sure.
What can I do to make, what is your goal? Because at some point you're getting married because you have goals and expectations. What a primary goal, because number one, it's protection. If you look at the thing about marriage is to protect someone from zina, to guard the private part. Because the Rasul says,
looking at the chin, looking at right in his eyes and pointing. Sorry, I didn't observe that.
I'm glad you noticed that.
I'm so sorry.
I was about to point at my tongue.
It made me uncomfortable, so I just didn't say it, bro.
No, I was going to say this, that the hadith, right? The tongue and the private part, right? The two things, the two flesh. Right? So when you get married, so if you have, and the reason for that is because you want to go to Jannah. You want to please Allah and go to Jannah, right? Yeah. So if you have an objective to go to Jannah, how is that marriage? What do you do? What is are the decisions you're making in your marriage? Are they bound by the Sharia? Are they halal? And B, are they meeting the objective to go to where you want to go to? Are they hitting your goals? Because it's not just about popping out a bunch of babies and saying, I got this much money and my wife is a dime piece and my husband is a great guy, successful. It's more than that. As a Muslim, we don't get married for those things. These are kuffar reasons to get married. I'm not saying these are not added bonuses. Sure, they can make marriage more enjoyable, but that is not the purpose of marriage.
So I wanted to ask you, since you work very closely into the community and Imam al-Masjid, so all of these things that we're mentioning, they're very, very much tied to marriage, as they should be. Allah created male and female so that we can get married and we can procreate and have people in this world that do dhikr of Allah and remember Allah. But how many people have you seen now, because of the way things are shifting and the dynamics are changing, how many people just don't want to care about this marriage institution anymore? It's like, hey, why bother with this? I can work, I can make my money. This is for guys and girls. I don't need the responsibility, like you were talking about. Responsibility is a very heavy thing. But if you don't have the Islamic paradigm behind this responsibility, you're not going to want the responsibility. Like, I don't need this responsibility. I could make so much more money. I don't need the liability of kids. I don't got to worry about none of that. So how much of that is actually happening? And number two, what is, how do we start curbing that if that happens?
Number one, I think number one, first is it's different with Muslims because the non-Muslims can easily opt out. Non-Muslims, they have no problem to indulge in zina and have 4 or 5 dime chicks on the side and so on and so forth. I mean, he can continue living his life like that. I mean, subhanAllah, you'll find an old man in his 50s, 60s, and 70s, and he's still committing zina. And, oh, this is my girlfriend, Jennifer, and that's normal.
He's a sugar daddy.
It's normal, and he's in his 60s and 70s, like, A'udhu billah, Sheikh Zani, la yanzuru Allah ilaykum. Like in our tradition, like a Sheikh, an elderly person, Allah doesn't look at you, A'udhu billah, right? Number 2, and there's so much to say because it's a very loaded question. I said this before and I'll say it again. We have to start switching the tables. We don't worship political correctness. If we really want to see and bring about productive change, right, in the younger generation, we have to leave political correctness outside the masjid where it belongs. We believe in wisdom, we believe in the truth, and we believe that the truth supersedes and overrides all. Okay? The problem is we have a lot of people, unqualified people, unfortunately, addressing the masses, right? Even though we're jumping into a whole different subject. But the other thing too is the ingredient of courage is completely missing. I mean, when you go to the khutbah today, all you're hearing about is someone telling you about how you have to vote. Someone is reminding you about the mercy of Allah. The other is reminding you about how to be good to your parents. The other is reminding you about how to be good to your neighbors. And that's about it. 5-7 recycled khutbahs, and that's about it. People don't want to engage these topics. Generally speaking, imams, mashayikh, and generally leaders, they do not want to talk about these things because they know they're going to push a few buttons. Perhaps his paycheck is on the line. He's worried of being canceled. And look, I understand, but it gets to a point of, well, how can you just sit on the sideline and you see these rotten fruits being produced, and you're still convincing yourself like, hey, there's really not much I can do. Right? So we have to come to the realization, as much as we don't want to, we have to come to the realization that I don't want to hurt your feelings, but the pendulum has swung so far to one side that we just want to try to get it back in the center. And getting it back in the center for some people is extreme itself.
That's a great point. Yeah. What about isms?
Well, I know you were talking a bit about women being the source of serenity in the home, and you want to talk a little bit about that in itself. Can you expand on that?
Yeah. So what's fascinating about the Quran? I mean, the Quran is fascinating just by purely it being from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But there are certain things in the Quran you're going to find that apply more to men more than they do women. Right? And vice versa, right? And then you're going to find certain things where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala equally addresses women and equally addresses men. So, right? So, for example, the concept of women being a sakina, a means of tranquility, a means of harmony, a means of solace for the husband, right? But Allah doesn't mention the opposite. Right? So, for example, in marriages, oftentimes you'll hear the verse in Surah Ar-Rum, right? وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ أَنْ خَلَقَ لَكُم مِنْ أَنفُسِكُمْ أَزْوَاجًا لِتَسْكُنُوا إِلَيْهَا وَجَعَلَ بَيْنَكُم مَوَدَّةً وَرَحْمَةً, right? إِنَّ فِي ذَلِكَ لَآيَاتٍ لِقَوْمٍ يَتَفَكَّرُونَ. Allah here, basically, He says that in of His signs that He have made spouses from yourselves, right? لِتَسْكُنُوا إِلَيْهَا, so that you, تَسْكُنُوا, the men, so that you find tranquility and comfort in her. Taskunu, meaning antum ma'ashar al-rijal, ilayha is the woman. Now this is also confirmed with another ayah in Surah Al-A'raf. It's slightly different, but it uses the word sakan, right? Sakan in Arabic means comfort, it means tranquility, it means calmness, solace.
Living space also,
harmony.
Because it has tranquility.
Yeah, living space, right, sakan, yeah, ahsan, nam. But in Surah Al-A'raf, Allah says, هو الذي خلق لكم من أنفسكم أزواجا هو الذي خلق لكم من أنفسكم هو الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وجعل منها زوجها ليسكن إليها. Right? It's the same concept, but here He says, and He has created a mate for it, so he, meaning the man, finds tranquility in her. And the best way this could be, but Allah doesn't say ليسكن بعضكم إلى بعض. He doesn't say here, so men are a sense of tranquility for women, and women are a sense of tranquility for men. You'll find that anybody who jumps on the egalitarian rope and hangs onto it is going to be devastated and is going to have a very hard time navigating through the text of the Quran and by extension the Sunnah.
Oh yes.
I'm just really warning the younger generation, ease off of this nonsense, because you're going to really be disappointed when you navigate through the Quran and Sunnah, because you're going to find some very uncomforting truths, right? So going back to the word second, it's amazing. This one psychologist put it best. He says, "Al-mar'atu," he says, "Al-mar'atu sakanun lil-rajul, wal-rajulu amnun lil-mar'a." That is the best way he put it. I mean, literally in just 2-3 words. He said that women, they are a sense of peace, comfort, and harmony for the man. But the man for the woman is a sense of security, is a means of security, right? And again, going back to the very obvious truth that we want different things from one another, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, honestly, what's the opposite of sakina? Like if we want to poke,
Chaos.
اضطراب, anxiety. I mean, subhanAllah,
Uneasy, complete uneasy. Yeah.
you're the minute a man, and I think we can all attest to this, right? The minute you set foot outside of your home, you're in this constant state
Battle.
It's a battle out there.
Strap the phone books on, man. I'm going out to battle.
But the minute you come home, what happens? Of course, now we're talking about, because some people, I know that that's why I just want to say, because some people are like,
healthy marriage. What a healthy Islamic marriage.
That's because some people are like, Sheikh, I don't want to come home. I don't even want to. No, I'm talking about here. We're talking about a decent, loving, caring wife. We're just going to say that this is the default, right? And of course, the Quran, yukhatib al-aswiya, right? This is what the Quran is speaking of. So the man is, the opposite of sakina is ittirab. Ittirab, yani, is something that's shaken, moving, in constant motion, right? So when the man comes home, if that's truly a good woman who's waiting for him, he's excited to see her, she's excited to see him, right? And may Allah bless our marriages, ameen. The man just, he puts his guard down, and she becomes a sense of sakina. I don't want to get a little bit too explicit, but I'm just going to leave that there. وَاللَّبِيبُ بِالْإِشَارَةِ يَفْهَمْ, as they say. Yeah,
I mean, no, I think it's a great point, because, my mother used to tell me this saying, a man outside can, basically, a snake moves in different directions outside, but when he comes home, he goes straight in the hole. Meaning that you leave everything.
So you said you want to be explicit. There you go.
No, that's not what I'm saying.
You're my interpreter. Today you're going to be my interpreter.
Yeah. Remember that one Key and Peele skit where he had like an interpreter? Yeah. Obama's interpreter?
Yeah. No, but what I mean is like what I'm saying is that you out
this
there
is the censored version.
Out there we're ducking and diving, right? We're moving around, we're trying to avoid, but when we come home straight, because we're going home at ease.
Yeah.
Right? That's how it should be. When you enter the front door, you know that, and now I can take off the armor. I can take off. I don't have to be, my guard doesn't have to be up. Right. I'm coming home to a place of warmth and love and coolness, and now I don't have to be worried about contending with other masculine energy. Men naturally, when we go outside, we have to compete with other men. Even
and you always have your guards up. You're really,
I don't know what someone's gonna say or what someone's trying to. It's generally, even among friends, people don't psychologically we compete.
Yeah, we don't realize actually how much we do it.
We compete with each other, right? And it's just something that happens. It's natural. It's instinctive to us.
It's also important that men also be not bringing that baggage home, right. that anxiety, that competitiveness from work, where she's not becoming anxious about what your day was like. Well, how is he going to come? Is he going to be upset that the food was overcooked or things like that? Something just happened recently with my wife where she dropped a can of Coke and it just fell all over the rug, and it was like the second time something fell or something, and she just was getting incredibly anxious, and she thought that I was getting upset, and I said, calm down and sit down. In the marriage contract, I just made light of it. In the marriage contract,
jokes. Here we go.
In the details, it said, she may drop things here and there. So she laughed about it, and she got caught.
Only twice.
Yeah. So
that's pretty dope.
I think, I mean, honestly, bro, what you're telling me seems to be so basic and intuitive. I don't know why. Yeah. Like, I mean, if you're a man and you're going to throw a fit because you're not worthy of marriage. Right. I mean, it's an accident. I mean, it just seems so natural.
I mean, one of our other, guest co-hosts, his name is Shaykh, he made a point, and I love this point too. I really feel this too. I feel Allah made men stronger for a reason, and it means that we should be able to shield and take the onslaught and protect the people that are vulnerable, including your women, your children, and like turn around and give a smile. But you take on all the stuff, and you carry this mountain because you're strong. With responsibility comes, with power comes this responsibility. That, you know what, hey, I should be out there being able to take bullets, dodging bullets, and come home and still come with a smile and be pleasant and be someone that they can, like, I get that it's important for men to talk about certain things, but I do draw a line and say, I don't think that men should express weakness to their spouses and their children all the time. A man should be a source of pillar and strength and consistency.
I disagree.
Wow, interesting.
Wow. I disagree. No, I really do. And it's okay that we disagree.
I'm going to have to explain that. I want to know what it is, though.
Yeah, I want to know what it is.
Can I be brutally honest for the 5th time?
Yeah, I'm kind of
one more time and you're up. No, don't. I love you for the sake of Allah.
Allah, yes.
Yeah, I love you too, but I'm offended.
No. Here's what I meant. I just want to elaborate.
Yeah.
I believe if a man is comfortable and you're so confident in your marriage where she knows where she's at and you know where you're at, I have no problem, for example, expressing certain things to my wife, because I know she's the only one I can really talk to. But I don't feel as though when I leave the house, that's going to make me less of a man. Why? Because you're comfortable. Like, look, she knows what's up. I'm the man of the house. She's the woman of the house. No, because some men, I'll be very honest with you, some men, and this is where I feel like some men, it's because of, and I'm not saying this is you, mahadallah, but some men do have, look, an insecure men do exist the same way that insecure women also exist, right? You have some men, they're so insecure that they've been married for 10, 20 years, and he's constantly, in one way or another, having to prove to his wife, like, I'm the man of the house. I don't have to walk in every day and say, honey, assalamu alaikum, I'm the man of the house, right? I don't have to do that. You get to a point where, look, she knows, alhamdulillah, you're the best thing that happened to me, alhamdulillah. Of course, I'm the best thing that happened to you, right? Alhamdulillah, we're good. I don't have to worry about that. But again, that's not something that comes in the first day, the second day, you know what I mean?
Yeah. So I'm glad you called about. See, what I'm talking about, though, is that,
I hope I didn't misunderstand.
No. Maybe I should have explained it better. What I'm saying is that there are men who a constant complaining is not the characteristic of.
Okay, sure. If you're talking about constant,
for example, if you say, "Hey, listen, I'm having a rough day with something. This thing happened. You want to unburden yourself. This is normal. You can speak to even your friends."
Sure. I see what you're saying.
But men that complain and say, "I'm worried all the time. I'm worried. I can't do this. I can't do that." You know, this constant worry. It's not something.
It's not healthy for the marriage either.
Not only it damages your own psyche.
Yeah.
Even though she'll ask you, "Hey, unload. Tell me what's going on." No,
because I know this. You know why? I'll tell you why. Because those women will tend to take on the worry and the burden that you have more than you.
Yeah.
Right? And I know that if I do that, it's going to actually, I have to deal with her.
You're saying that out of rahmah.
So I have to deal with now her uneasiness now on top of what I'm dealing with, because I know even though it comes from compassion from a good place, but she doesn't realize the kind of stress that will also bring if I do that. Meaning that now I'm worrying about two different things, right? So also maybe it depends on the kind of woman, but generally speaking,
that's the caveat. I think that's
a man needs to know what he can tell her and what he can't.
Oh, sure.
Right?
Sure.
And I think that because, for example, with a guy like these guys, I can unload anything I want to on them and be like, yo, this is work is crazy. I don't know if this work is going to work out. I don't want to tell my wife that kind of stuff. Because why? Oh my God, we're not going to have money to eat. We're not going to have this. You stop worrying about, do I have to go and work? I can help you work. This needingness to help and show rahmah can sometimes be a source of worry for them, on top of the worry they already have as a woman. And you don't want to create that environment where now you feel like that she has to baby you too, right? And
I think the tweak there, or I think that to create some balance, it really I think it's a case per case basis. It depends on what woman we're talking about. We're talking about what relationship we're talking about. I think that's going to vary. Yeah. But if you're describing the case there, then sure, I think
you have to know what to tell and what not to say, because at some degree, I believe men can shoulder certain things. I mean, there was I can guarantee you the Prophet ﷺ, he did confide in his wives in certain things, but there were many things that he didn't, like, because
he
this is his position of a man, right? Like he did out of his own honor, his dignity.
That's why he had good friends, and
considering them, right? Like, he had, and that's why suhbah is important, right? You have men and good people around you who are, kahamil al-misk, like they are people that will give you a good reflection, a good scent, a good understanding, be a mirror of you, and things like that, because you need that kind of companionship, because there's certain things that you have that only men can understand.
Yeah.
There's certain things and I feel like that there's certain times where that even though women have a good place, they can give you good advice, but the amount of stress it may cause them may cause strain on the marriage, and it may make you worry more too about it. And,
and again, I think it goes back to the man knowing what kind of woman he's dealing with. Can she bear the pressure? Can she not? Just one thing I would like to also add is that I'm not even sure how we got into this, but when it comes to I told my wife even before marriage, I said, look, I have absolutely no problem asking for your opinion, right? But I do not want you to take it to heart when I don't take your opinion to heart. For some men, it's out of the question. It's out of their peripheral. Like, I'm gonna ask my wife about it, like just on a basic, what do you think about this, that, you know what I mean? For some men, that's a red line.
I think it's foolish to think of that way. I mean,
very.
Know why? Because if the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam would, and I love this event in the Prophet's life, Sulh Hudaybiyah, where Salama was advising him, radiallahu anha, where he was kind of frustrated that Sahaba didn't, because they were so eager on going to Hajj, and that they didn't want to slaughter and cut their hair. So she says, Ya Rasulullah, just be the example. Go and do it yourself. They will see you do it, and they will do it. And the advice is so key because you're leading by example. That's what you are. You are a Nabi, and you lead by. And this kind of it's not like that he actually went to go seek it, but the fact that he expressed this to her was able to put her in a position, because he also knew that she was a woman of wisdom.
But not only that, that's where the sakina part comes in.
Yeah.
Because at a time where he was going through so much turmoil, she was able to make him think of something and give him advice on something that's purely giving tranquility.
And he accepted it.
And I think maybe a third part, I feel like there's a trinity going on here, right? But notice how, even though it was in a very dire situation, nerves, everything is just crazy, right? She still felt comfortable to say that.
SubhanAllah.
I think this is very powerful.
That's amazing.
Yeah. She felt comfortable because for some women, here's the thing. It's an extreme when you have some men who view their wives as just another daughter. I find this to be, and I'm not going to lie, if you were to ask me, I believe this is what aggravates, and I think this is what produces, and I think this is what helps, this is what promotes more feminists, this is what promotes more disgruntled women, is that, I'm not going to lie, look, I'm not I want people to understand, Youssef Soussi is not on men's side, and he's not on the women's side. Youssef is on the side of the haqq. Where I see it's the truth, that's where you'll find me, inshallah ta'ala, right? I have nothing to gain and nothing to lose, alhamdulillah. Well, maybe some followers, but that's okay, right? They'll come around sometime, right? But I find that to be an extreme. You have certain cultures who really have that nasty look on the woman, like it's his daughter. It's not that daraja where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلِلْرِجَالِ عَلَيْهِنَّ daraja. It's not that daraja. No, it's more of like, I'm here, you're
just here. Property for them.
That's an extreme. And look, you're going to have a disgruntled wife, right? And she's not going to honor you.
Well,
she's not going to.
How is someone going to feel valued?
Of course. That's an extreme.
What I'm saying is that, just look at a boss-employee relationship, right? A company can't function without an employee or a boss, right? They both need to be there.
Right.
But the employee can't be disgruntled. Their opinions and ideas and effort have to all be recognized and valued. And
I think your example is going to be taken the wrong way. The boss, who's the boss?
No,
who's the
but listen, it is the reality, right? Allah gives authority to who He chooses.
I know, I see where you're coming from.
We take it, right? We have to act on it. Now, you can be a bad boss or a good boss, right?
No, but a true boss understands that they're actually a servant.
That's what I'm trying to say. And here's what
they're a leader servant.
The reason why I use the example of boss and corporate, I'll tell you why I do this. It's very calculated. I'll tell you why. Because if a company, if you ever worked in a corporate job, if the company doesn't hit its mark, it doesn't hit its target, something happens, more than likely, the managerial level and CEO executive levels, someone's getting canned.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, it's their responsibility. Likewise, if my family fails, ultimately, it's my responsibility.
Yeah.
Allah will question me about things that He won't question the wife about.
Yeah.
If I could bring in this reminded me of the ayah, Allahumma barik, where Adam alayhi salam was solely held responsible in the Quran, right? So for example, you find this beautiful example in Surah Taha, right? Where Shaitan comes to Adam, he says, فَوَسْوَسَ إِلَيْهِ الشَّيْطَانُ قَالَ يَا آدَمْ هَلْ أَدُلُّكَ عَلَى شَجَرَةِ الْخُلْدِ وَمُلْكٍ لَا يَبْلَى, right? Shall I not guide you to the eternal tree and an eternal kingdom, right? فَأَكَلَا مِنْهَا. So the approach, you find that the one who was approached wasn't both of them. He didn't say that فَوَسْوَسَ إِلَيْهِمَا فَوَسْوَسَ إِلَيْهِ الشَّيْطَانُ, right? قَالَ يَا آدَمْ. He says, oh Adam, right? And then right after that, فَأَكَلَا مِنْهَا فَبَدَتْ لَهُمَا سَوْءَتُهُمَا وَطَفِقَا يَخْصِفَانِ عَلَيْهِمَا مِنْ وَرَقِ الْجَنَّةِ, right? So both of them ate, and then their private parts were exposed, and then they started looking for leaves to hide their private parts, right? But then when it comes to the rebuke and the admonition and put in the blame and responsibility on someone, Allah doesn't say both of them were to blame. وَعَصَى آدَمُ رَبَّهُ فَغَوَى. Why is it that at the beginning, look at that at the very beginning when Shaitan came, he's basically speaking directly to Adam. And then the act itself, the disobedience, was carried out by both of them. They both ate, their private parts were exposed. But then when the responsibility came around, وَعَصَى Adam.
Beautiful.
Why doesn't Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say, وَعَصَيَا رَبَّهُمَا? Why? This is an ishara you take from the Quran. This is an ishara that the man is the responsible one in the household. And that's why it's important for us men. You don't just sit and admire your wife from afar. And for a woman who believes that the Muslim husband is he who's going to just sit and admire her from afar, I have news for you, sister. Please do not get married. Brotherly advice. If you really believe this is how a marriage operates, is that your husband is just to sit there and admire her from afar, I got news for you, sister. Please don't get married. Really, don't get married. Because that's your job as a husband. When you leave not dressed appropriately, guess what? That falls on my shoulders. When you're online posting nonsense and you have a picture that's enticing each and every person who comes across your profile, I get the burden for that. I'm held responsible in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for that Yawm al-Qiyamah. When you're doing hijabi tutorial videos and you got your face plastered in there and you're wandering eyes of thousands of random non-mahram men, if not million, I get the burden of that. Right? And this is also found in another place in Surah, for example, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about Ismail alayhi salam in Surah Maryam, right? As Allah says, وَاذْكُرْ فِي الْكِتَابِ مَرْيَمَ وَاذْكُرْ فِي الْكِتَابِ إِسْمَاعِيلَ إنه كان صادق الوعد وكان رسول النبي وكان يأمر أهله بالصلاة والزكاة وكان عند ربه مرضية وكان يأمر, he used to command his family / wife بالصلاة. أمر is command. The man is commanding the wife, right? Or the husband, because the word ahl, it's tricky because you guys see all those viral videos. You guys see all the viral videos of خيركم خيركم لأهله. But usually a lot of our Muslims, they choose to use the word, the translation for ahl as wife. But the more comprehensive translation of ahl is actually family.
Yeah.
The more
including
comprehensive.
Your wife, yeah.
Including your wife
and children.
Your parents, everybody.
It's part of your, but here we're talking about those you're responsible for. Yeah. Because you're responsible, right?
But and you are, to a certain degree, there is responsibility to your parents and people.
Oh, no. Yeah, but we're talking about, you're talking about that in terms of the authority as the leadership, right? Yeah. But this fascinates me. Out of every quality that Allah there are hundreds of qualities that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala could have mentioned. But what's mentioned here is the first thing, وَكَانَ يَأْمُرُ أَهْلَهُ بِالصَّلَاةِ.
Yeah.
Why is that? It just shows the man's leadership role. And in Surah Taha, right? وَأْمُرْ أَهْلَكَ, Prophet Muhammad is being addressed by Allah. وَأْمُرْ أَهْلَكَ بِالصَّلَاةِ وَاصْطَبِرْ عَلَيْهَا لَا نَسْأَلُكَ رِزْقًا نَحْنُ نَرْزُقُكَ وَالْعَاقِبَةُ لِلتَّقْوَى. The first thing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling Prophet Muhammad is to command your family, your wife, to pray.
Yeah. وَاصْطَبِرْ عَلَيْهَا.
Yeah, of course.
Coming back to the salah.
Sure. I just wanted to frame it out there that we have to come to this realization.
It's a beautiful thing.
There is a man in the house and there's a leadership of the house. Yeah. No, you don't worship him. You don't worship him.
Man, there's so many gems. I was just thinking about something right now too, because it's talking about men and the relationship of men, right? But just a little bit before that too, with the response of Maryam alayhi salam, قالت إني أعوذ بك من الرحمن إن كنت تقيا, right? That ayah where Jibreel comes to her and the angel comes to her and she doesn't know who it is, but she's saying, I seek refuge in the most merciful if in كنت تقيا.
That's beautiful.
So she's reminding him of, because a man has obligations and duties, right, and he has to have taqwa, right? Meaning fear of Allah. And so you fulfill these obligations. If a man is fearful of Allah, he will fulfill these obligations. Yeah. He will meet his end of the bargain.
Without a doubt.
Not only that, she's speaking with him in a language of, hey, authority. If you're a person of taqwa, no, not only authority, but hey, we have a common culture of taqwa. And if you're a person of taqwa, you understand what I'm about to tell you.
Yeah.
Right?
Like you should expect what I'm telling.
Because we have a certain culture amongst ourselves of taqwa.
Yeah. So
it shouldn't be something alien to you, what I'm about to say.
Allah Akbar.
It's beautiful.
Just so many gems you take from masculinity in the Quran that there's so many of it. You just have to remember
even the abandonment of women that we know of from Sayyidina Nuh alayhi salam and Lut alayhi salam, and know that there will be women who aren't aligned with your visions.
Yeah.
There will, your folk will, whether even your children will abandon you, and but these are the trials that come with masculinity, that you are the shepherd, that you do your best and you may not even succeed, but even the best messengers who came before you weren't able to keep everyone together, you know. And as someone who was divorced, that what gave me a lot of source for inspiration and strength, that I saw some of the Anbiya go through this and that pain, seeing that your wife becoming stone. You know, obviously he didn't see because he didn't turn around. Because they were commanded not to turn around, but knowing that it happened to her, you know. So
someone that you love, someone you had a partnership with,
of course, all gone.
All gone. And
SubhanAllah.
But I think the most important thing is the only way this could really transpire and materialize is by first coming to terms with this reality. This is the way Allah, call it, look, you can call it patriarchy, call it whatever you want. The reality is the way Allah created this kawn, and the way the balance is that there is a woman, not a slave. No, I'm saying there's a woman in the house and there's a man of the house. If you as a sister, you cannot come to that realization, marriage is going to be very, 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 very problematic. It's going to be a crazy roller coaster ride. It's going to be, it's going to be dreadful. It's going to be just nasty. So I think it's us coming to this realization that, look, you can hear a lot of people preaching about how it is and how it ought to be, but the reality is your biology is telling you that men are this way and women are that way. Yeah.
You know, there's something really, I always think about this too, and it's just, wallah, subhanAllah, the wisdom of some of the Bedouins. It's amazing sometimes. Like the clarity so I'll tell you this thing. It was in Arabic, but I'll do this in English, but a man came to a Bedouin and asked him, you know, what do you think the relationship of a husband and wife should be? He thinks for a second, he turns back and he goes, the husband serves the wife out of the house and the wife serves the husband in the house.
SubhanAllah.
Yeah. It's so basic, but it's just, it speaks volumes.
But it's on point.
Yeah. And like you said, going back, look, I think we can sit here from now until like 5 o'clock in the morning and just keep that. But like you said, the whole idea of servitude, right? I'm risking my life out there for you.
And you love to. That's how you feel your value.
I'm not complaining.
Of course,
right?
But you love it. Of course.
And the thing is,
it's what you have to do.
And
it feels right.
The thing is that also, and that's the key we're saying, that if you make a man feel appreciated and you're serving him in the house, he has no problem carrying the weight of the world in his back outside the house. He's going to want to do that. It inspires him to do that because he sees value in it.
And that's how you build a vibrant society, man.
Ideally.
Everybody has it.
Ideally. I'm talking about ideal marriage. I'm talking about what it should be, what men should be.
Because there's always that sister.
Because I feel like if we're saying what women should be, we should all be talking about what men should do.
We're talking about again, we're talking about just ideally speaking, because look, I get the complaints. I'm the one who hears the other side. And let's be very frank and honest too, that you have a lot of women out there who are not being appreciated enough. Sure. What I mean by that is that she's a housewife. There's nothing more that she could do for her husband, yet the husband is trampling all over her. He doesn't respect her. He doesn't look at her with respect.
Appreciate
and
her, right.
His eyes are wandering outside in public, and I find this to be, well, of course she's going to be disgruntled.
Of course.
Right? So I think we have to be fair and balanced, and to say that we all want recognition, right? And look, it's very obvious. The independent working woman out there, it doesn't take, you don't have to push a woman to be a career woman today. That's kind of the default position, if you will. That's the default direction. Everybody wants to be that, right? So it's a call for men here that if you have a wife and she's a stay-at-home mother and she's doing everything that you want her to do, she needs to be recognized.
Of course.
You as a husband need to go above and beyond and remind her. Wallahi, I'm going to speak about my personal experience is, there's not a day I wake up in the morning and I see everything washed and clean, only that I make dua for my wife, because I deeply appreciate it. It means the world to me. Whether she has to do it or not is irrelevant, but me just to wake up and everything is put in its place. And I know I'm not the one who did it, right? She's the one who did the laundry, ABC, XYZ, but I I remind
And
her
the
of
ease
how
and the
much
comfort
I
it brings you.
appreciate it.
Right,
And
yeah.
I love her for that. A man recently asked me, he said, Sheikh, why don't you, he said, Sheikh, why don't you plan on getting a second, a third, or fourth wife, right? I thought to myself, I said, well, I told him this. I said, Allahumma barik, and I'm going to say this on the air. I said, Wallahi, I don't think 3 other women can do what my woman is currently doing.
Allah Akbar.
So I don't.
That's amazing.
The delusion comes in is that when you have a loud mouth, when you're disrespectful, when you're rude, and you're being competitive, and you have all this masculine energy, and then the day he wants to marry a second wife, you look at him in dismay.
Like,
how dare
why?
you?
I'm perfect.
This is what gets me. How dare you? You know?
Yeah. Subhanallah.
If you're gonna be like that, expect someone to find. I'll be honest. There are men. This is a bigger topic. I don't want to get too deep into right now, but there's 2 reasons why I feel either a man's gonna go two ways. Either he's going to fall into haram, or he's gonna get a second wife. And the reason why some of this happens, I believe, I'm not taking the blame off the man. These are decisions that I mean, in the case of zina, or maybe even doing a secret marriage, if he does it the wrong way, this blame still falls on the man. However, part of the reason why this is happening is because they have incentivized divorce, and they have allowed women to hold the upper hand when Islamically divorce was the right of the male. And so when you incentivize this, what happens is that a man now has to fear letting things, instead of saying, listen, it can't work out, we're going to go in peace. You want to live that life, no problem. Let's go in peace. You have your whatever you did, you decided, whatever you want to do, or here's your no problem. Instead of doing that and saying, fine, you want to be an independent woman? You want to be independent? You want to be do we want to be? I'm sorry, it's not compatible with me right now. I can't do it. Let's divorce in peace. That's no longer going to happen. Now it's like, oh, you're unhappy? Payback time. I'm going to clean you out if you dare leave me. And take your kids, right?
No, you're not exaggerating. Hassan Shibli is an attorney, and he posts about this. And if I just may add something, what I believe started off as really genuinely about gender equality has morphed into trampling all over men.
Yeah.
So it's not. We have to really be kidding ourselves. It's not about gender equality anymore. It's not about rights anymore. We're living in a time right now where it's about revenge and about trampling all over men. Listen, the fact that you post, you have second thoughts of posting, of just writing a post or tweeting something praising men. The whiplash that awaits you and the whiplash that's waiting for you.
That's crazy.
Just by praising men, what men bring to the table. Just the praise of men today is seen as controversial.
That's
right?
insane.
Yeah. And again, we have to stop acting like we're not affected by what's happening around us.
Yeah.
It's happening implicitly, subconsciously.
It even happens too. There's this YouTuber named Pearl, just Pearly Things. She talks about what men bring to the table and some of the problems.
No,
that
they brought the
feminism.
table. I mean, let's be honest.
And she got like demonetized and all kinds of
did she
different.
get demonetized, really?
Yeah. A lot of her content's been banned. She got kicked off of TikTok and stuff like that. So,
by the way, going back, I just want to put up not a plug, not that there's anything for me, but there's an amazing book. It's called Men on Strike, and it explains the financial burden and why a lot of American men are opting out on marriage. Just because you feel you get married, your life is ruined. If you seek divorce or you want to separate, your life is financially ruined.
You know what's crazy? I know this brother. I'm sure you might have heard him, Baba Ali. He runs that site hackdean.com. Okay,
I think so.
Yeah. Anyways, so he told me they know of this wonderful, but I don't want to. He didn't give me details, obviously not, but he knows this wonderful brother. Inshallah, very dayin. He's involved in the community. He has a very good job. I'm talking about he's well over 6 figures. I mean, very well over that. I mean,
is he looking for friends?
Here's the thing. Listen, he does not want to get married.
Yeah.
He does not see that. Like he says that I don't.
Dayan, religious brother?
Dayan. He's saying that the women that are around today, I don't feel comfortable and secure saying, listen, taking the risk of getting married.
Understandably so.
And and by the way, he's such a good guy that when this guy left the community to go to a different community, the community held a goodbye thing for him. Like that's how of a notable, like how not only with his money but with his time, like he dedicates to the children of the community, everything he does, find orphans, people. He does so much well, but he's like, I don't even want to get married. With the way things are now, I would feel it would actually take away from what I can do.
SubhanAllah.
And this is a religious, not a non-Muslim
intriguing.
man. This is a religious brother who's doing khair in his community.
30s, 40s.
He's probably in his late 30s, 40s now.
Wow.
And he's like, but this is a brother who's doing khair, who knows the value of marriage. He's begging. He knows knows the sunnah of getting married, all these things. But yet he feels that the way that women are around him, at least the proposals have come to him, the type of women he's been seeing, that marrying one of those kind of women would take him away from the good that he can do.
Mashallah, mashallah.
And this is crazy to me that this is even a conversation that people who are religious are not. Before it was just a thing about kuffar, oh, the women are like this, and the liberals are going to be like that, so they don't want to get married.
I disagree with that guy, though. I mean, there are really good women out there.
I'm sure there are.
You don't have to go to the States. You can go overseas.
What I'm saying
you can go to the East. You can go to the East.
What I'm saying is that he, around himself, this is the conclusion that he'd had. I'm not saying that there's not good women.
It demonstrates to me a lack of trust in Allah. I mean, he might be all those things, and I hope.
Or he may be one of those people that he's such a baller that everywhere he goes, people just leech onto him, and he just.
There's ways.
Everyone knows their experiences, right? What I'm saying is that the people that he's talked to, he's attempted to this many times, but what ends up happening is that he realizes that there's something that that either they want to have a career, or either they want to have a certain expectation, they want to have a certain kind of lifestyle. They're focused on certain things that he believes eventually would take him away from a day-in lifestyle that he would be doing.
Yeah,
right. And so and he argues that, listen, the whole point of this is to protect me from harm. The marriage is to protect me from harm.
Yeah.
Right. And if I'm going to fall into harm by getting married because of the people that I'm seeing, I'm not saying he doesn't want to get married, but after a while, he obviously just kind of loses the hope on the idea that the women that I'm being introduced to, if one comes, it comes. But
the stakes are high.
But I mean, the stakes are so high for him that he really fears that if he would have married a woman that came to him before, he would have lost his religion.
Here, let me, in a nutshell, I said this before, and I'll say it again because it's relevant. I said it before. I said it in this podcast. If we're going to be fair, this idea that women are above criticism is destroying women. Okay? This idea that women are above criticism. Let me ask you this. When is the last time you walked in all three of you, when is the last time you walked into a masjid and you heard the Imam talk about a woman's obedience to her husband?
Never.
Back in the 1700s?
No, it used to be in the
1800s?
90s. Yeah, it used to be in the
1800s?
80s and 90s. Yeah, you'd hear that.
Okay. Nothing today. When is the last time you walked into a masjid and you heard the khateeb talk about hijab? Any of you? No? See, I'm asking you, but I know the answer.
Yeah.
Right? You're honestly telling me that that's not going to affect the average Muslim growing up today? Kalla wallah. No. And this is what people seem not to quite understand, is that the more we rub them on the shoulders, and they're already being taught from school, from a very young age, that they're amazing the way they are, that don't let anybody judge you, you're exceptional, there's something special about you, and then no one reminds them of their duties on the minbar. I mean, you guys know those viral videos that go around about how the Prophet ﷺ was good to his wives? You guys see any of those viral videos about how a woman should obey her husband, or how the women of the Prophet were with the Prophet? You won't. You won't see that. And this is what I think a lot of our young generation, this is what they're sick and tired of. Okay? And I'm very passionate about this. Forgive me, because it's the status quo. It's the status quo. There's not a community that I visit, only that the younger generation is telling me, Sheikh Youssef, how come other sheikhs are not talking about this? I never heard this khutbah before. Right? So the younger generation, they start losing trust in the Muslim clerics.
Yeah.
Right? And again, who does this harm the most? Although we think we're helping them, this harms the women. At the front stage, at the front level, the very first ones, we think we're helping. It's actually backfiring, and I think it's harming them.
And women are the backbone of society. That's their importance. Who are giving birth to all the tyrants and all the horrible men that are in the world? No.
You're going to blame women for tyrants?
For all the horrible men who are raising
responsible for the birth of all humans.
Yeah.
For all the women, is all the men. All the
But
women.
how you mention the tyrants first, not like a Nabi.
No, because if we're going to complain about tyrants, if we're going to complain on good people,
because we are
people,
littered with tyrants right now, right?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No. I agree, man. Look, there's a reason why we firmly believe that our spouses and our children should be safe. That if they can grow up in safe spaces, and if they, which is, I personally believe, is the home. if the husband provides a good, comfortable place, Islamically first and foremost, right, and raises them on simplicity and deen, there's the way that mother's education, and I'm talking about Islamic education, in education in the realm of being one with Allah and understanding our responsibility with Allah. If that's the woman who's going to be raising your children, right, and you know, that's going to be what the entire society is going to be, man. You know, I don't know if you remember Maulana Yusuf Islahi?
Yeah.
Right? From back in the day? Yeah, he said something really beautiful. He said that if you have, because the mother is the first madrasa of the child, that if you build the environment of taqwa for your wives in your home, that is the goat, you know, the lap of where Imam Shafi'is are born. You know what I'm saying? And that's very true. He said in Urdu, it was beautiful, right? Yeah. But trying to translate it. But he's very true. And I heard that as like a 13 or 14-year-old. I still remember that exactly. Yeah. And I get what he's talking about. You know, like many years later, I get it. Back then I was like, oh, that's cool. He's talking about Imam Shafi'i. Yeah, you know, I didn't. But when you get older, you're like, dude, that is so true. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, I was just thinking when I was growing up, like, I read like Zainab al-Ghazali's Return of the Pharaoh, and I was thinking about the quality of the men who were torturing her in prison. Yeah. This is the Muslim Brotherhood story. She was the wing of the female wing of the Muslim Brotherhood. For those who don't know who she is,
sisterhood. Yeah.
So her book, she writes her accounts of spending time in prison of Jamal Abdel Nasser's Egypt in the 60s. I remember reading that book, and I was like, what kind of men are these that like how are these kind of men born, and like what kind of mothers did they have? Like, I know my mother, the way she raised us, wouldn't it be never to be an oppressor?
Yeah, and how would you torture?
What kind of mentality are these women who raised these men that who don't have compassion? And who could torture a woman?
Yeah, endlessly. You know? He's the one who introduced me to that. You ever read that book?
No.
I had my daughter. I don't know if my daughter. I can't remember if she finished reading it.
I have.
But he introduced me to that book, and I think that was an amazing book. I read that the first time I ever got a book, and I read it from cover. I had a fever. I still remember. This was probably like in the year 1999 or 2000. Yeah. He gave me the book, and I had a fever. It was closer to 2000. Yeah. 2000, and I remember I finished from cover to cover while I was just sitting in one place. I couldn't put it down, bro. Yeah. Because that same thing I thought, what I was thinking of is, but are these the people of the shayateen, of the ins that Allah's talking about? Yeah. Like, are they actually shayateen, but in human form?
You have to be
like, are they able to do that? How do you do that? You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And a woman just talking about Allah, and she's talking about sovereignty of Allah in the society. Like, I'm pretty sure there should be a plan B of how to discuss that with a woman. Yeah. You know, like bring in a philosopher or something. Like, you want to like beat her, torture. Remember that she was talking about the torture? I'm sorry to talk about this morbid stuff. They put her in a pool where she had to be on her tiptoes the whole time, because if she went down, she would drown. Yeah. And then if she was staying up long enough, they take a whip and hit her face with it. Yeah. I was like, dude, what type of man has to be such a
cowards? The cowards they were. They threw dogs at her, and she made dua to Allah, and the dogs sounded like they were attacking her, but they didn't touch her, but they were making sounds like they were attaching her. It was something along that lines.
No, you're right.
Decades, but they didn't even do anything to her. But these weak guards, these oppressors, they tried.
This is the reminds me of the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, where he talks about صنفان من أهل النار لم أرهما نساء كاسيات عاريات مائلات مميلات وقوم معهم أصوات يضربون بها الناس. Right. The first is, he talks about the hadith that two women were the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, two groups of the hellfire that he didn't see before. Right, that the Prophet ﷺ saw. He talks about women who are dressed, but it's as if they're unclothed, right? Because of how provocative they're being dressed. Take heed, sisters, right? And another one is قوم معهم سياط كأذناب البقر, right? They have whips, and they're hitting people with it. So this is immediately what comes to mind are these ummal and these employees who think they're just taking orders. La wallah, it's far beyond that. عليهم من الله ما يستحقون. I mean,
Sheikh, now I know you have to go to the Deen show.
Sure.
May Allah preserve
He's going to the big
Brother Eddie.
stage.
Yeah,
I mean-
the big stage. You're right now. Just kind of warming up.
Party.
Yeah, just we
Warming
were your
up.
warm up. This is appetizer.
Yeah. I really enjoyed it.
Inshallah. Can you as you close this, can you just tell a little bit about what the Tafsir project is and what you're doing? And I put the links in the bio so that you can, or in the description, so that people can go and visit that.
Well, Allah yabarak fik, jazakallah khair. I had no idea you actually had done that. Allah yabarak fik. The Tafsira project started off years ago, and the idea behind it was to bring very hard, lengthy topics, try to condense them, but use animation just to kind of so it's easier to take in, especially for the younger generation. I think visuals is definitely a helper for a lot of people.
What a nice name for that, Tafsira.
Yeah, it's actually from it's from Surah Qaf.
Yeah.
تبصرة وذكرى لكل عبد منيب. Yeah, so I took it from there. So that was the intent behind it. I'm slack in terms of production. I'm very bad at. See, a lot of people are like, "Oh, Sheikh, how come you don't do a lot of YouTube videos?" It takes the logistical part of it, the lighting. See, I don't have this setup. If I had this setup, I can just press 2 or 3 buttons and start recording.
We can work with you. We'll help you. I've helped many YouTubers in the past get set up, so just hit me up and we'll figure it out.
But I have
we'll make the
about,
process really easy.
I have about, subhanAllah, 20 or 30 videos that I have to record about all these relevant contemporary subjects, but it's just a matter of
Just move to Chicago City.
No, we got to go to Minnesota and have some calamite biryani, and then we'll go to the place, inshallah, or whatever.
Inshallah.
Studio, whatever the case is. Inshallah.
Allah yabarak fikum.
Sheikh, this platform is your platform. Anytime you're in Chicago, please let us know. We'll personally be offended if you don't, unless
Well,
you're
You have a
actually
Shari'i excuse, it's fine.
Allah yabarak fikum.
Friends, Mad Mamluk friends, please help us out by clicking on the like button. Leave a comment in the comment section below. Help us out on patreon.com/the Mad Mamluks with whatever that you can. And we also have another alternative payment through PayPal, themadmamluks@gmail.com. Otherwise, thank you all for joining us in this cold weather. For those of us in America, but I think my feet are frozen.
Yeah, my feet are frozen too.
I can't feel them.
I can't feel my feet no more.
It's all of us. Me
I'm
too.
wearing boots, bro. I got like these big Timberlands on. Still feel cold.
This is the hard work we put in for you guys. I can't feel my fingers. But yeah, we'll see you all next time. Assalamu alaikum.
All right, so
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. How long? Yeah. Right.